Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into Biofexry University and Raider City, kind of their intertwined fates.
Yeah, we've got these source chapters detailing, well, some really complex stuff. You have the Biofexry settlers, Dylan E.T. leading them, then the rebels who are, pushing back against his whole vision, and then this other group, the Raiders, much more aggressive, led by Jasper.
Right, so our mission today, if you like, is to sort of pull out the core ideas, the philosophies driving them.
Exactly. And the conflicts that bubble up because of those ideas, and importantly, the technologies they're using, how those shape everything.
Yeah, looking at that interplay between like creation control and this constant hunt for knowledge, it seems key.
It really is. It's central to this whole narrative.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Biofexry University, the sources talk a lot about this martial art with synchronic swords. Sounds like it's more than just combat.
Oh, absolutely. It's presented as much more. This practice, you see people like Triona, Luciana, Towson, and Aaron involved. It's almost described as a language, a way to express things, focusing on synchronization.
Physical sync.
Or more, both, it seems. Physical and maybe even mental. Plus, it ties into their Amias principles that seems to be their core values, strategic thinking, all wrapped up.
Yeah, so combat mixed with philosophy.
Precisely. And it's apparently quite a visual thing, too.
Yeah, the description of the swords lighting up, intertwining colors when they activate, that must look amazing. Really shows that interconnected creativity they seem to value.
It does. And Dylan E.T., he's the architect of AMIS, the Additive Manufacturing Information System, which is kind of their bedrock tech and philosophy. He sees this practice, watches it, and recognizes how it connects directly to that idea of interconnected creativity. It's like their beliefs made visible.
Okay, this is where I thought it got really interesting. Dylan starts this thing called a dialectical dialogue, comparing traditional fencing, like Renaissance style, with their AMIS principles, specifically something called 3DGR. What's that about? It's not just history, is it?
No, not at all. It's really showing a core idea in Biofexry.
Yeah.
Innovation builds on what came before. They seem to respect history, see knowledge as evolving.
Right.
So you have Aaron, who's apparently quite strategic.
Yeah.
He talks about the brilliance of traditional swordplay. And Dylan connects it, explains how AMIS actually draws from that tradition, but then adds their own layer, these encoded hilts on the swords.
Encoded hilts, imbued with, what was it, spiritual symbolism and divine syntactics. That sounds pretty deep.
It does, doesn't it? Divine syntactics. It suggests the encoding itself, the structure, has this fundamental, almost sacred quality, like the universe's rules embedded in the tech.
Wow.
And we see it with Triona and Towson. When they use these hilts, it's not just about fighting better. It's tied to, well, spiritual expression, art, that whole interconnected creativity theme again.
So it's not just tech for tech's sake, it's deeply integrated.
Exactly. Dylan's big picture seems to be AMIS acting as this bridge, connecting earthly stuff, tradition, with these, well, almost divine or universal principles he sees. It's all interwoven.
Okay, but then things shift. We get the rebel faction emerging. And their story kicks off with a major find, right?
Yeah, a huge one. This group, Lucy Stearns, Jasper, Halem Cathon, Neville Fallow, they stumble upon this artifact. It details the process for growing artificial citizens.
And that immediately causes friction.
Instantly.
Yeah.
You see their different values clash right away.
Yeah, you can really see it. Jasper's reaction is like, okay, let's free this knowledge and then control it.
Right. While Halem's more interested in its potential to just shake things up, disrupt everything.
And Neville, he's worried about the AMIS principles, the ones they supposedly believed in.
Which is significant.
Yeah.
He feels the conflict there.
And Lucy, she's thinking about protecting it for everyone, but also, importantly, questioning why Dylan should have sole control over something this powerful. It's a real ethical moment for them.
It is. It's this immediate philosophical split. And what do? They decide to take the artifact.
But they frame it differently.
Completely. They see themselves as protectors, liberators, not thieves. And that puts them on a direct collision course with Dylan.
Which leads to that confrontation,
Yeah.
a real clash of worldviews. What's the core disagreement?
It really boils down to Dylan pushing for harmony, stability, keeping things under control at Biofexry, versus Lucy and the others really driving for freedom, for exploring what this new knowledge could mean, its potential.
Dylan sees the process artifact as needing careful handling, central control.
Exactly. While the rebels want it out there, want individual agency with it.
And it even shows up in their fighting styles, right? With the synchronic swords, Dylan's all tempo and rhythm.
Yeah, very controlled. Versus Lucy using the encoded hilts in her own way. Their philosophy is reflected in how they fight.
That's fascinating.
It really is. And then, that symbolic act, they each take a piece, a fragment of the process artifact.
Solidifying the split.
Definitely. Breaking away from Dylan's control, his vision.
And this leads to that actual fight, Dylan versus Lucy. What does that tell us?
Well, the description is quite vivid. Dylan uses his tempo and rhythm style and something called anchoring 3D-GR, maybe a way to stabilize energy. Very precise, strategic. Lucy, though, she's got dual swords, the encoded hilts, and she's focusing on linguistic semiotics.
Which suggests she really gets the language aspect of their tech.
Right. She brings a different kind of complexity, uses these intricate 3D-GR semantic structures, and that's actually how she manages to get away. Her mastery of those structures is key.
Okay, so the rebels have the fragments. They've escaped Dylan. Where are they off to next? What's next challenge?
Yeah, they head into the rainforest of Mount Viridian. They want to properly understand this process of design and development of artificial citizens.
Right.
But it's there they start picking up signs of another group, the Raiders. And Neville, interestingly, senses this kind of unsettling energy. Foreboding, maybe?
A clash is coming.
Seems likely.
Dang.
Their destination is this place, Clifton Stronghold, described as this big platinum fortress.
Sounds imposing. What's Clifton like when they meet him?
He's portrayed as, well, pretty self-absorbed. Sees the rainforest purely as a resource, something to exploit for his own power.
And the rebels arrive wanting to enlighten him.
Basically, yeah. They come wanting to share their ideas, talk philosophy, maybe show him a different way.
So we get another philosophical debate. What ideas do they try to share? Lucy, Neville, Helm, Jasper.
Well, Lucy talks about interconnected creativity, balance in the ecosystem. Neville brings up divine principles, guiding actions.
Okay.
Helm focuses on careful construction, respecting the complexity there. And Jasper talks about a symbiotic relationship, tech and nature working together.
And Clifton's reaction,
Okay.
receptive.
Not in the slightest. Utterly dismissive. Rejects it all.
Figures.
Yeah, he just sees the rainforest and 3D-GR as tools. Tools for control, for power. Their philosophy means nothing to him. Weakness, even.
Just exploitation.
That's his focus. So talking isn't working.
Which means conflict. They have to try something else.
Exactly. They end up clashing with his guards, these platinum-clad raiders, heavy armor.
And how do the rebels handle it?
Jasper actually steps up as the strategist here. And the others embody different kinds of resistance. Lucy, using her linguistic 3D-GR skills. Neville fighting virtuously. Helm using maybe more cunning, roguish tactics.
And they actually managed to win against this force.
Surprisingly, yes. Their coordination, strategy, their individual skills, they overcome the brute force. And it ends with them actually taking control of the Hall of Rain.
Wow, inside his own fortress.
A pretty significant victory, yeah.
But things don't just settle down in Raider City after that, do they? Their presence stirs things up internally.
It really does. It kicks off this internal debate among the Raiders, a sort of dialectical dialogue, you could say. Some Raiders actually start thinking about unity, about a different path.
And Lucy even speaks to them directly.
Yeah, addresses a crowd, talks about transformative linguistic exploration, interconnectedness, trying to shift their perspective.
So the rebels start genuinely influencing the Raider narrative.
For a time, yes. They're actively trying to persuade Raiders, the ones willing to listen, to embrace 3D-GR principles for more than just raiding.
Like potential beyond just grabbing gold?
Right. Autonomy, innovation, building something lasting.
But it doesn't stick, does it? There's resistance, conflict flares up again.
Yeah, the old ways, the Raider hierarchy, it's deeply ingrained. It clashes hard with the Rebels' vision. And this is where Jasper, her manipulative side, her ambition, the queen thing, it really surfaces.
Uses the chaos.
Seems like it. And the internal strife gets bad enough that the rebel faction has to make another choice.
They have to leave.
Yeah. Facing too much opposition. The traditional Raiders pushing back.
Yeah.
They end up fleeing back to the rainforest.
Leaving Jasper behind.
Leaving Jasper to consolidate her power. She gives the Raiders a narrative they understand, conquest, power.
And her ambitions are bigger than just Raider City now. That speech she gives.
Oh, yeah. Her speech outlines this plan to merge Raider strength with AMIS tech. Specifically, energetic 3D-GR signaling in cannons.
For more firepower.
An interconnected 3D-GR for coordinating platoons like never before. She's definitely aiming to expand, conquer beyond their borders.
Meanwhile, back at Biofexery. Things aren't quiet there either, are they? The castle itself is threatened.
No, it comes under direct attack. A platoon of Platinum Raiders shows up, and crucially, they have a 3D-GR signaling cannon. That's a big step up technologically for them.
So the settlers, Triona, Towson, Aaron, they have to defend their home.
Right. They mobilize quickly, Dylan joins them, and the castle's architecture itself becomes part of the defense.
How does the fight go? Sounds like a major test.
It is. Those 3D-GR energy cannons are tough.
Yeah.
But the settlers fight back effectively with their synchronic swords. Dylan uses his graphene blades. And interestingly, the text mentions the 3D-GR trails from the synchronic swords actually seem to restore the castle structure.
Wow, really integrated tech.
Deeply. But even so, they have to fall back deeper into the castle, using its confusing layout against the waiters.
And they manage a strategic win amidst the chaos, capturing someone important.
Yes, they capture the raider, who has that signaling 3D-GR cannon, a key piece of tech.
And this captured raider makes a deal.
Offers Dylan information, Jasper's plans, in exchange for gold and getting out safely. Reveals just how ambitious Jasper is with this new warfare concept, using 3D-GR signaling and the swords.
And Dylan accepts.
He does.
Then Aaron talks to this raider, gets more detail on Jasper's grand plan.
Yeah, the raider spells it out. Jasper sees Raider City becoming this hub of transformative power.
Ow.
Through innovation, strategy, and, significantly, linguistic mastery manipulation. The 3D-GR cannons aren't just for blowing things up. They're for tactical manipulation, coordination, and the synchronic swords. Tools for control through encoded linguistic patterns.
Okay, then the story takes a weird turn. Jasper seems to talk directly to us, breaks the fourth wall. What's that about?
The major reveal. Jasper basically tells the audience, look, the real prize in biofactory isn't land or resources. It's the process for growing artificial citizens.
The artifact again.
Exactly. She admits her philosophical debates, her fighting skills. It was all misdirection. A performance to manipulate her own side and keep attention off the rebel-held fragments.
So conquering biofactory's high ground is about controlling artificial life itself.
That's her ultimate goal. Controlling creation.
This really sets up that confrontation between Jasper and Theodora, doesn't it? The psychic one.
It does. We see Theodora in the chamber biofactory preparing for something. Dylan's watching. Then Jasper, from Raider City, reaches out psychically.
And their conflict is purely philosophical.
Fundamentally, Jasper, strength, ambition. Theodora, balance, harmony. But Theodora manages to plant seeds of doubt in Jasper's mind about her methods, their cost.
And Theodora herself undergoes a huge change here.
Huge. She basically merges with biofactory castle. Becomes its living consciousness, its steward.
She is the castle now.
In essence. She tells the settlers she'll amplify their creativity, boost defenses. But she's a steward, not a ruler. A different kind of leadership.
And Dylan's reaction?
He acknowledges her. Sees her transformation as maybe the next step beyond his own vision. Calls it his final lesson. Powerful stuff.
Okay, shifting focus again. Kath in the rainforest. What's her situation? Who does she meet?
Kath is described as uncoded, now maybe meaning she's broken from past ties. She has Jasper's stolen plans, the rules of calling.
Right.
And she's tracking Neville Fallow in the Rainwood. She finds him, describes him as this warrior scholar type, really connected to the forest, with these twin synchronic swords, channel and moat.
And they team up?
They get ambushed by raiders first. And in that moment, yeah, they decide to become allies. Shared enemy, shared purpose, perhaps.
And Jasper, she must be furious about Kath stealing her plan.
Oh, absolutely livid. Sees it as a direct declaration of war.
Against Kath.
Against the rebels hiding in the rainforest. Lucy, Halem, Neville. She rallies the raiders. Arm the cannons, hunt them down. The stolen fragments, the plans. It's a direct challenge to her power.
Meanwhile, Theodora, being the castle now, senses this.
Yeah, she senses Jasper's move like a destructive storm coming. And she gives this really ominous prophecy.
What does she foresee?
The fall of the wild fringes, biofactory being silenced, and Dylan being absent. Gone.
Wow.
And she adds this really thought-provoking line that abandoning a hollow structure isn't betrayal. Maybe holding the castle itself is the wrong idea.
Leaving Dylan questioning everything.
Exactly. Contemplating rhythm, maybe contemplating letting go entirely.
So the hunt in the rainforest begins. Jasper's forces sound overwhelming.
They are. Her raiding platoon marches through, synchronic swords, the signaling 3D-GR cannons, described as this light show of power, destructive potential.
And she's after Lucy and Halem specifically.
Leaves the rainforest can't hide them from her flood, as she puts it. Villagers are fleeing towards a place called the Blackwater.
Halem and Lucy are trying to help them.
Yeah, guiding them. Halem seems despairing, seeing Jasper's relentless advance.
And the raiders catch up.
They overwhelm the villagers, and they capture Halem. Crucially, they get Neville's fragment and Halem's fragment of the process artifact.
Both fragments together.
Yes, but then something completely unexpected happens. Halem doesn't just give up.
What does he do?
In this defiant act, he forces the two fragments together.
That's true.
And there's this huge emergence. Countless golden 3DGR rhombuses appear, shimmering, and this massive telekinetic whirlwind erupts, which Halem somehow controls.
He controls it. Where did that come from?
Totally unexpected. A latent power unleashed by bringing the fragments together, it seems.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot. We've covered so much ground. Conflicts, betrayals, transformations. Let's just pause and sum up the core struggles here. What's really at stake?
Well, fundamentally, it's this multi-sided battle over knowledge, specifically the knowledge to create artificial life.
Right.
And over control.
Right.
And it's fueled by these really different philosophies. You've got Dylan's harmony, the rebels' liberation idea, Jasper's naked ambition, and now Theodore's interconnected stewardship, all clashing.
Yeah. And along the way, there were definitely some moments that made you go, aha, key realizations. What stood out most?
Several things, I think. The synchronic swords being both weapons and language, that duality is huge. Then realizing the process artifact fragments are more powerful together than separate.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yeah, with Halem.
Exactly. Theodore actually becoming the castle's consciousness that's profound, and Halem's sudden power surge, of course. These really changed the game.
Definitely. This deep dive, it really does give you that quick but still thorough grasp of all these complex dynamics, doesn't it? Seeing it from all the different angles.
Absolutely. It cuts through to the core issues, and it leads us right at the edge with this really provocative thought to chew on.
What's that?
Well, you've got Theodore as the living castle, Jasper marching with overwhelming force, Halem suddenly wielding this incredible, unpredictable power. What on earth happens next for Biophexeries, for Veridagus?
Is that line between the creator and the creation just completely blurring now? And what is all this interconnectedness, this fight for control over life itself? What does it all mean? Ethically, where does it lead?
All right, you've tuned in for another deep dive, and this time the waters are definitely swirling. We've got clashing metal, the hum of some pretty advanced tech.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You sent us chapters from, well, what looks like an incredibly rich fictional world. So we're about to plunge into Biophexery University, try to untangle the threads of the AMIS, that's the Additive Manufacturing Information System.
Right.
Explore these fascinating synchronic swords, and, well, try to make sense of the conflict brewing around something called the process artifact in Raider City.
And what's immediately striking, I think, about this material is just the intricate web the author's woven. We're not just getting events thrown at us. There are clearly defined technologies, with underlying principles, characters driven by really distinct philosophies, and conflicts that seem to stem from these fundamental disagreements about knowledge and, well, power.
Definitely.
So our goal, as always, is to navigate all this complexity and pull out the core insights, the key understandings that'll give you a solid grasp of this world.
So where do we even start trying to unravel this? The initial scenes, they kind of drop us right into the thick of it at Biophexery University, showing off these synchronic swords in action.
Right.
We need a pretty compelling cast straight away. Triona, the Saber Gypsy, Luciana Quirkai, who's described as having empathy for language itself.
Interesting.
Towson Vilecroft, the charismatic guardian of virtue, and Aaron Sawyer, who seems like this ambitious strategist in the making.
Now, what's fascinating right there is the immediate declaration that these synchronic swords are more than just weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
Triona explicitly calls them a language, a form of expression, even talks about creating a harmonious narrative.
Which makes you wonder, right? If these movements are communication, what kind of information are they actually exchanging? Is it emotion, intent, things spoken language might miss?
It really suggests a depth to their culture, doesn't it? Where action and intent are intertwined in this very deliberate way.
Absolutely. And it's compelling how each person's philosophy seems embodied in their sword style. Like Towson's focus on virtue, this balance of strength and tenderness.
Which connects to AMES, we find out later.
Right. And then Aaron's emphasis on strategic brilliance, wisdom and technique. It's not just hitting things. It's like a dialogue through movement. We even get a glimpse of the visual spectacle, the activation patterns of the swords, these interconnected displays of creativity. It sounds amazing.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the fact that Dylan E.T., the architect of the AMAS, is there watching, that becomes significant.
Good point.
It suggests this seemingly localized martial art is actually under the purview, maybe even the influence, of the central architect of their whole tech and philosophical system.
Which naturally leads us to dig into those AMAS principles more, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because the narrative then pivots to this dialectical dialogue.
Yeah.
It compares traditional Renaissance fencing with the principles of something called 3D-GR within the AMAS.
Now, 3D-GR, that sounds foundational, likely tied to the additive manufacturing part of AMIs, right?
Seems likely. And Aaron, with his strategic mind, he asks the question, how can traditional strategic brilliance fit into these 3D-GR hilts?
Dylan's response is quite revealing, I thought. He acknowledges the history, the inspiration, but then emphasizes that 3D-GR infuses spiritual symbolism and a language of divine syntactics.
Okay, that's where it gets really interesting.
Right. It hints that technology isn't purely functional. There's this deeply ingrained philosophical or maybe even spiritual dimension.
What is the source of that spiritual bit? Is it belief or something in the tech itself?
That's the question, isn't it? And how does that dimension influence how 3D-GR is developed and used?
And we see Triona and Towson kind of backing this up, talking about the spiritual and artistic expression in the swords. It's not just combat mechanics, it's tied to their values, their beliefs. Dylan sums it up neatly, viewing the whole dialogue as this bridge between tradition and innovation. In his eyes, the sword dance itself tells a story of harmony, wisdom, compassion, righteousness, and strategic excellence within their world. Faradageous.
It's a truly holistic view, integrating technology, art, philosophy.
Yeah.
Which raises that important question. If this system is presented as so harmonious, so grounded in these positive ideals, then where does the conflict we know is coming actually stem from?
Exactly. Because the narrative shifts pretty quickly, introduces this rebel faction. Lucy Stearns, Jasper, Halem Cathon, and Neville Fallow.
Right, and they're positioned at the entrance of some hidden chamber, focused on an artifact called the Process for Growing Artificial Citizens.
Okay, now the stakes are raised considerably.
Definitely.
This process artifact seems to be the core issue. Dylan clearly has a vision for its use, but the rebels want to liberate the knowledge.
And you see their different motivations laid out. Lucy seems driven by understanding, maybe protection.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
Jasper. Well, the pursuit of power and influence seems paramount for her. Halem comes across as maybe seeking disruption, a chance to reshape things, maybe a bit chaotic.
A hint of chaos, yeah. And Neville seems to be grappling with the ethics, like the conflict with the established AMA-S principles he might believe in.
So the fundamental disagreement boils down to that classic tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Control of potentially world-changing knowledge versus open access.
Dylan's probably worried about misuse.
And the rebels likely think restricting it holds everyone back, hinders autonomy. It's a deep philosophical divide.
With huge ramifications for their society, clearly.
And their decision to just take the knowledge, knowing Dylan will react, that ignites the central conflict right there.
And Dylan definitely senses something's wrong. He detects a disturbance and bam, we're thrust into a confrontation between him and Lucy back at Biofexry Castle.
Their exchange really highlights that core conflict again, Dylan pushing harmony, stability.
While Lucy champions freedom, the potential locked in that artifact.
And the tension just ramps up when Jasper, Neville, and Halem show up, revealing they have fragments of this artifact.
That image of the fragmented artifact is powerful, isn't it? Symbolically, like their society fracturing, the diverging paths.
Very much so. And the confrontation peaks with Lucy drawing her synchronic swords, which leads to this dramatic battle in the moonlight.
You've got Dylan, master of tempo and rhythm, using 3D-GR against Lucy, master of linguistic semiotics, with dual blades.
And the description of the fight, it's almost poetic. The trails of 3D-GR, the linguistic significance of each strike, it really emphasizes how unique combat is here.
Totally. We see Dylan's tactical use of 3D-GR, Lucy's counters. They even name specific maneuvers like awakening, complexity, balance. It paints this picture of a highly refined, almost artistic form of fighting. The climax comes when Dylan tries to disarm her, but she uses, a complex 3D-GR semantic structure.
Yeah, and that creates an opening for her escape. It's a narrow win for the rebels, showing Lucy's skill and, the unpredictable nature of their fight.
That complex 3D-GR semantic structure, given the focus on language, maybe like a sequence of patterns that creates a logical or, I don't know, perceptual block for Dylan, just for a second.
Could be something that buys her those crucial seconds she needs.
Yeah. So after escaping, the rebel faction heads into the rainforest of Mount Viridian. But it's clear they haven't escaped danger.
No. Signs of raider presence pop up immediately. Suggests a bigger conflict beyond just biofexery.
Which leads them to this guy, Clifton, and his platinum fortress, built right out of rainforest resources.
Clifton sounds like a piece of work. Vice-filled. Sees the rainforest just as a tool for his dominance.
Pretty much. And the philosophical chat between the rebels and him is really revealing. Stark contrast in values.
You have Lucy talking interconnected creativity, balance, Neville mentioning divine principles, Halem pointing out flaws in artificial manipulation. Even Jasper tries proposing some kind of symbiotic relationship.
But Clifton just dismisses them. His ambition trumps everything.
It really illustrates the different factions and philosophies at play, doesn't it? The rebels, despite their own issues, seem to share some basic respect for interconnectedness. Clifton is pure exploitation and power.
So when dialogue fails,
conflict seems inevitable, and we see the rebels clash with his platinum-clad raiders.
And again, the battle is shown through their individual skills. Lucy's linguistic battle, Halem's unpredictability, Neville holding his ground, Jasper as strategist.
It's a coordinated effort against just brute force.
And they manage to win, taking control of the Hall of Rain, but that victory feels brief, because the focus shifts to Raider City.
Right. And this is where Jasper's true motivations really start to surface. While the others, especially Lucy, were trying to start this dialectical dialogue in Raider City, talking transformative linguistic exploration, ethical excellence, Jasper had a totally different game plan.
Her manipulative monologue, breaking the fourth wall, that was a twist.
Huge twist. Reveals her real goal is the process for growing artificial citizens, not the city's silver and gold.
Shows how power dynamics can corrupt things, even when people seem aligned at first.
Definitely. All that talk about graphene semantic structures, just a diversion.
A smokescreen, yeah.
She's been using her language skills, the philosophical debates, even her fighting, all as tools to manipulate events, get closer to those rebel-held fragments.
Her objective is crystal clear now. Control the artificial citizens, seize Biofexery Castle's high ground, build her own loyal settlement.
She's been playing a much longer, much more intricate game than we first thought.
Which sets up conflict not just with Dylan, but within the rebel group itself. Lucy's ideals versus Jasper's raw ambition.
Exactly. And the narrative then snaps back to Biofexery Castle. Theodora and Dylan are discussing her integration with the castle itself.
Which is a wild development. Theodora essentially becomes the castle structure, defenses, its very essence, a sovereign mind.
Like a complete merging of consciousness and architecture. It's stated she consented, her being intertwining with the castle's infrastructure.
And her announcement to the settlers afterwards emphasizes she's a steward, not a ruler, which is such a contrast to Jasper's power grab.
Huge contrast. But that moment of potential stability, shattered immediately by news of Jasper's reaction to Kath stealing a fragment.
Ah, yes, Kath.
Jasper is absolutely furious, declares war on Lucy, Halem, and Neville. And in her twisted view, the theft actually helps her, because it leads her right to them.
That relentless pursuit into the rainforest, it's driven by pure rage and determination to get that fragment back and punish the others.
Shows how ruthless she is.
And amidst all this, we finally get properly introduced to Kath. She's tracking Neville in the Rainwood, and she has the stolen rules of calling.
Right. And Neville himself is described as this warrior scholar, exiled twin synchronic swords.
There's that silent acknowledgement between them just before Jasper's Platinum Raiders ambush them.
Throws them together, doesn't it? They fight separately at first, but there's this sense of shared purpose against the common enemy.
Seems like fate is pushing them into some kind of alliance, maybe. Unforeseen circumstances forcing new bonds.
It definitely hints at that.
Yeah.
But just as these potential alliances might be forming, we get that dire prophecy from Theodora.
Oof, yeah. She sees Jasper's advance as an unstoppable storm.
Foretells the fall of the wild fringes, the silencing of Biofexery Castle, and crucially, that Dylan won't be there when it happens.
And that cryptic line, abandonment not being betrayal if the structure is hollow. What does that mean about Biofexery? Or Dylan's role?
Raises so many questions. Theodora leaves, and Dylan's just left alone to grapple with this bleak prophecy and the castle's uncertain fate.
And the prophecy seems to be happening, like, right now. Jasper's pursuit intensifies. her raiding platoon chasing the village settler nomads through the rainforest relentlessly.
We see Jasper's power on full display: synchronic swords, these signaling 3D GR cannons causing devastation.
Halem and Lucy are desperately trying to guide the villagers towards the dangerous Blackwater. It's their last resort.
The attack on the villagers sounds brutal. Halem gets captured.
And loses Neville's additive manufacturing module and his own Graphene 3D GR fragments. Or so it seems.
Right, Lucy manages to escape towards Blackwater with a few survivors, leaving Halem captured. Things look pretty grim.
But then, the twist.
The big twist. Despite being captured, despite apparently losing the fragments, Halem secretly kept both a Graphene 3D GR and Neville's additive manufacturing pieces.
His desperate act, forcing them together,
triggers something totally unexpected. Countless golden, self-assembling 3D golden rhombuses just erupt around him.
Must have stunned the raiders.
Absolutely. And this creates some sudden, powerful connection between Halem and the 3D GR. Gives him telekinetic ability, seemingly out of nowhere.
And the scene ends with him directing this furious telekinetic whirlwind of golden rhombuses outwards, right at the raiders.
Leaving us on a massive cliffhanger.
Wow. So, okay, let's try to summarize that whirlwind. We've journeyed through BioFX University, its unique mix of martial arts, tech, philosophy.
Witnessed the conflict escalating over the process artifact.
Seen Jasper's manipulative rise. Learned about Theodora becoming the castle, her ominous prophecy.
Followed the desperate flight into the rainforest.
Culminating in Halem's completely unexpected display of power. It's quite a complex tapestry. Martial arts, advanced tech, philosophical debates, raw power struggles.
Exactly. The central conflicts were really sharp now. Dylan's vision of control versus the rebels' push for liberation. Jasper's ambition against pretty much everyone else. And that underlying tension between tradition and innovation shaping it all.
And the technologies, synchronic swords, AMIs, 3D GR, they're not just props, are they? They're extensions of the characters' beliefs, their motivations. They drive the story.
Absolutely integral.
And that final moment with Halem, that's a real game changer. It just throws everything up in the air, changes the dynamics completely.
It raises huge questions about the true potential of these fragments and the people who wield them. Definitely leaves you wanting to know what happens next.
Yeah, seriously.
Which leads us to a final thought, maybe, for you listening. Consider the ethical questions here. Artificial citizens, who gets to decide their fate? What is that process? Process artifact, really. And think about the nature of power in this world. Is it just forceful control, like Jasper seems to believe? Or is there power in influence, knowledge, connection, like maybe Lucy and Neville are aiming for?
Big questions.
And finally, what about these unexpected alliances? Kath and Neville potentially teaming up, Halem suddenly becoming this powerhouse. What does that tell us about how things can shift, how new forces can emerge when facing overwhelming opposition? Are there resonances here in this fictional world that maybe shed light on our own?
Some really compelling things to chew on there. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into these fascinating chapters.
It was quite the journey.
Definitely. And if you have more sources, fictional or otherwise, you'd like us to explore in future dives, please, send them our way. Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into the world you've shared with us today.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We've got BioFX University, these synchronic swords, something called the AMIS.
And this whole conflict starting up raiders, rebels, yeah.
Right.
So our goal here, like always, is to pull out the key stuff, give you that shortcut to understanding what's really happening.
Exactly. We'll hit the main points, maybe uncover a few surprises, but try not to drown you in details.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We start at BioFX University in their martial arts arena.
And these synchronic swords, they're not just weapons, are they?
No, not at all.
No.
The sources describe them more like a language of combat.
Interesting. And we meet a few people right away.
Yeah. There's Triona. She's a saber gypsy, uses blades called Tag and Thew. Luciana Quirke, who's focused on language, like an artisan of it.
Yeah.
Towson Veilcroft, it seems very connected to virtue. And Aaron Sawyer, who wants to compete.
And right off the bat, this idea pops up that combat isn't just, well, combat.
Exactly. Triona actually says it. The dance of the synchronic swords is not just about combat. It's a language, a form of expression. Each strike, each parry tells a story.
Wow. So skill is just part of it. It's a communication too. Intent. Philosophy.
Yeah, that seems really central to BioFX culture, doesn't it?
It really does. And the others pick up on this.
Right. Towson sees this blend of strength and tenderness tied to her ideas of virtue, which we find out are part of these AMIS principles.
And Aaron. the strategist.
He's all about the tactics, the synchronized teamwork in their moves.
And visually, it sounds quite spectacular. The activation patterns of the swords intertwining.
Yeah, it's described like a physical representation of how they think, interconnected creativity, a mini demo of their whole philosophy.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because someone important is watching.
Dylan E.T. himself, the architect of the AMIS.
Right. And he's not just watching a cool sword display. He sees something more.
He sees potential beyond just martial arts, which is significant, right? The guy who created the whole system.
Exactly. He's paying close attention. Suggests a deep link between this language of combat and his AMIS principles.
Okay, so fast forward a bit, we find Triona, Towson, and Aaron, now with Dylan, and they're having this dialectical dialogue in Biofexry Castle. Sounds calm, serene.
And the topic is quite specific.
Comparing traditional fencing, like from the Renaissance, with the AMIS principle.
Which is smart, right? Dylan's trying to bridge the old and the new.
Yeah, he talks about the history, the strategy, the cultural weight of traditional swordplay, sets the stage.
Gives context for what makes AMI different.
And Aaron, being competitive, he jumps in.
Naturally.
Asks how these special 3D GR hilts the handles manage to use those old fencing ideas, but also innovate.
Good question. And Dylan's answer.
It's crucial. He says, yeah, AMIS draws from tradition, precision, discipline, all that.
But then adds more layers.
Exactly. Spiritual symbolism, a language of divine syntactics. That's a mouthful.
It definitely suggests AMIS is more than just fighting. It's got this philosophical, maybe even spiritual core.
And Triona and Towson chime in about the helts, the encoded helts.
They talk about the spiritual meaning, the artistry.
That interconnected creativity again. Triona brings up the dance being a narrative, telling a story.
Reinforcing that language idea.
And Towson connects AMIS directly to virtue, even mentions a sacred manufacturing process.
Wow. So their creation process is tied to their ethics.
Seems like it. Dylan wraps it up saying it's about bridging tradition and innovation. Respecting the past, embracing the future with 3D GR tech.
That seems to be the whole ethos of Biofexry. Build on the past, don't just discard it.
Right. And this dialogue, it really sets up the conflicts to come, doesn't it? These ideas get tested.
They certainly do. Because the scene shifts dramatically after this.
Yeah, totally different vibe. Hidden room, new people. Lucy Stearns, Jasper, Halem Cathon, and Neville Fallow.
And they're looking at this ancient text.
With a very loaded title, Process for Growing Artificial Citizens.
Okay, alarm bells are ringing.
Instantly. And the tension in the group is obvious. Lucy sees it as a huge responsibility.
But Jasper, she thinks it needs to be taken from Dylan. Liberated, she calls it.
Liberated, right. And Halem, he seems almost excited by the chaos it could cause.
Well, then there's Neville.
He's the voice of caution, ethical concerns, worried about betraying AMI's principles, betraying Dylan.
So you've got this immediate split. Responsibility versus liberation versus chaos versus ethics.
Exactly. Lucy tries to frame it as protecting knowledge, keeping it safe.
But you can see the other agendas, can't you? Jasper seems to want power. Halem wants disruption.
And Neville is really struggling. He's worried about the settlers, the people who believe in AMIs. How do they justify this?
That's a heavy question.
Lucy tries to smooth it over. We're protectors, not raiders.
Does it work?
Not really. The text says they decide to take the knowledge, figure it out themselves. Neville's still deeply troubled.
So they're going rogue.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to confront Dylan, and crucially, the process artifact is now divided, split between them.
That act itself is huge, symbolically breaking from the whole system.
It's the trigger, isn't it? Kicks off the main conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sets up the direct confrontation.
And it happens fast. Dylan senses something's wrong in Veridagus, this whole region, like he knew a challenge was coming.
Prophetic.
Oh.
Or just good planning.
Hard to say. But then we see the Rebels Lucy's group escaping Biofexry Castle at night.
And the imagery is strong here. Dylan on the tower.
With his anchoring 3D GR. Some kind of stabilizing tech, representing order, authority.
And Lucy below, with her synchronic swords, embodying rebellion, the desire to liberate knowledge.
Their first words cut right to the chase. Dylan warns them about the artifact's power.
And Lucy pushes back, calls his vision constraining, says they want to empower others.
Then Jasper, Neville, and Halem show up, holding their pieces of the artifact.
A clear visual statement of defiance.
Yeah. And they list their reasons. Untapped potential, individual growth, progress, fighting stifled creativity.
And arguing the settlers deserve the power to shape their own destiny. It's the classic rebellion argument, really.
Totally. And the tension just ramps up. Lucy draws her swords full of this rebellious energy.
So it's stability versus freedom. Dylan versus Lucy.
And the immediate goal, the rebels trying to escape with those fragments.
Which leads directly to a fight.
Right there in the moonlit courtyard. Dylan versus Lucy.
And it sounds like quite a duel. Dylan's got his tempo and rhythm swords, plus that anchoring 3D-GR.
Lucy's using her linguistic semiotic style, 2 swords.
And the tech is flying. 3D-GR trails marking their moves.
The encoded hilts reacting strategically. Dylan's tactical, Lucy's countering. It's called a visual masterpiece.
Yep, the description is very dynamic. Enigmatic dance, graceful ballet, complex rhyme. It's more than just hacking and slashing.
Definitely. Lucy even has this move, Awakening, showing her sword's creative flow.
And Dylan responds with complexity, a collaborative beat using his enhanced swords.
It escalates. Dylan tries to disarm her.
The disarmament move.
But Lucy pulls off something called a complex 3D-GR semantic structure.
Sounds intense. Like an encoded counter move.
Exactly. Fueled by her rebellion, her linguistic defiance. It freezes Dylan for a moment.
Just long enough.
For her to break away. To escape the duel.
So the first round goes to the rebels. Sort of. They get away with the fragments.
Yeah, they escape the castle, which puts them on a whole new path, out from under Dylan's direct control.
And that path leads them somewhere completely different.
The rainforest of Mount Viridian. New environment, new dangers.
And the group dynamic is important here. Lucy, Neville, Halem, and, crucially, the original Jasper are together at this point.
Right. Their goal now is to figure out this process for growing artificial citizens using the fragments they took.
But the rainforest isn't empty.
No. They start seeing signs of raiders, and Neville. He seems particularly sensitive to this stuff.
He senses an unsettling energy.
Yeah, something that clashes with the natural harmony. Foreshadowing, clearly.
And Lucy feels it too. Disturbances. They end up near a clearing with a bad vibe.
Clifton's stronghold, the raider leader.
And Halem notices Clifton's operation.
Large-scale resource excavation. Halem thinks Clifton has no clue about the delicate balance needed for creating artificial citizens. He's just digging stuff up.
While Jasper, still with them, suggests a cautious approach using the raider city nearby as cover.
Their arrival at Clifton's place sounds ominous. A platinum fortress, eerie lights, contrasts sharply with the rainforest.
And Clifton himself.
Portrayed as powerful but corrupt. Sees the rainforest purely as a resource to exploit. No respect for it. Neville's unease must be sky high. Definitely. And Lucy prepares for a verbal showdown, this linguistic dance, to expose his ignorance and challenge him.
So it starts as a philosophical clash, not a physical one.
Initially, yes. Lucy tries to explain interconnectedness, balance. Neville urges him to respect nature, interdependence.
Trying to appeal to some higher principle.
Yeah, but it seems Clifton isn't receptive. The whole scene highlights the clash between the rebels' ideals and Clifton's pure, selfish ambition. Nature itself feels like a witness.
But Clifton digs his heels in.
Completely. Values control over harmony. Mocks their ideals. Says the rainforest, the 3D-GR tech, it's all just tools for his dominance.
Oof. Lucy argues back about interconnectedness being true power.
Neville pleads for respecting life's balance. Halem points out flaws in Clifton's methods. Jasper talks about symbiosis between tech and nature.
So the whole group tries different angles.
But Clifton just wants power. Defiant, the tension builds, the rainforest energy shifts.
And they realize talking isn't working.
Right. Lucy signals a change in strategy. A fight is coming. Against the platinum-clad raiders.
Okay, so the philosophical debate failed. Now it's physical.
And Jasper steps up as the strategist for the rebels here. Remember, she's still on their side at this point.
Right. So Lucy, Halem, Neville, Jasper against Clifton's forces.
Yep. Lucy, the linguistic maestro. Halem, the roguish guardian. Neville, calm guardian of virtue. They take their stances.
And the pre-fight banter continues the theme.
Totally. Lucy challenges Clifton on Enlightenment's rhythm. Clifton's just like, crushed.
Halem promises a roguish surprise. Neville calls Clifton's ambitions hollow.
Lucy talks about a linguistic symphony, revealing his lack of harmony. Jasper mocks him, offers to teach his raiders true power.
Clifton just doubles down on plundered power.
Halem keeps poking about their lack of finesse versus his roguish finesse.
It sounds like the environment itself is helping the rebels.
Yeah, the text says the rainforest seems to dance with them while the raiders stumble, reinforces that nature connection.
So the rebels, guided by Amos principles, hold their own.
more than hold their own. Clifton starts seeing brute force isn't cutting it against knowledge and nature.
The tide turns.
Definitely. Lucy disrupts their coordination linguistically. Neville's 3D GR structures hold firm. Halem causes confusion with unpredictable moves. Jasper coordinates everything.
And Jasper confronts Clifton directly.
Yeah, questions his rigid approach, his definition of power. Clifton just repeats plundered power.
Lucy calls his power a facade. Neville says nature rejects him. Halem taunts him about unpredictability.
They're gaining momentum. The rainforest adds chaos. Jasper pushes them forward.
Clifton's getting desperate.
Final orders, shouting, but Lucy keeps up her linguistic dance in the fight, talking about knowledge transforming things.
And the outcome.
The Hall of Rain falls to the rebels. The rainforest seems to applaud, a clear victory for the rebel faction.
So they've defeated Clifton. What happens next? They're in Raider City now.
Yeah, their presence there sparks more dialogue, this time within Raider City. An exchange of ideas begins.
Interesting. So some raiders are actually open to the rebels' vision.
Apparently, they start seeing potential in mixing the rebel ideas with their own city's creativity.
Creativity might be a generous term for raiders, but okay.
Maybe. But Lucy actually addresses a crowd with some raider leaders. Her words about MIS principles resonate.
So the rebels become influential within Raider City.
Yeah, they become integral contributors, leaving a mark on this pretty unconventional place.
But not everyone is convinced.
No way. We see a scene. Lucy, Jasper, Neville, Halem facing skeptical raiders. Lucy offers knowledge, a path beyond raiding.
And the raiders.
First reaction, I'm here for gold, Jasper counters, talking autonomy, innovation as true wealth.
Still meets skepticism.
Yep.
Fancy words.
Yep. Neville brings up ethical excellence. Halem playfully suggests the artifact unlocks the city's potential.
The raiders sound torn.
Exactly. That internal conflict. Lucy pushes the artifact enhancing autonomy angle.
A burly raider asks the key question, what makes your vision different?
And Lucy explains. 3DGR principles, machine units, interconnected knowledge, leaves the raiders at a crossroads. Their future is up in the air.
But things start to sour within the rebel group itself, right?
Yeah, the next phase shows internal conflict boiling over. They're outside Raider City, still trying to win raiders over to 3DGR. Lucy's talking about breaking stagnation.
They meet various raiders. Lucy addresses the group by a fire, offering a future beyond raiding.
But that focus on gold persists. Skepticism remains high.
So Lucy's message isn't quite landing.
Not universally. Then the rebel faction makes a controversial move.
That's why.
They decide to use their synchronic swords as excavation tools. Mining gold, carbon, uranium.
For their artificial citizen project.
Seems like it. But this sparks conflict within the city. Raiders using destructive methods versus the rebel faction.
And the group dynamics shift. Neville tries mediating.
Halem uses charm, but Jasper.
She gets drawn into Raider City. Really immersed.
And this immersion leads somewhere dark. A betrayal.
Here it comes. Jasper's turn.
She confronts Lucy, that enigmatic smile. Contrasts Lucy's sharp blades of principle with her own melody of ambition.
Ouch. Lucy stands firm.
Resolute. Principles won't yield to darkness. Halem quips about the unexpected dance, making it a spectacle.
But Jasper goes all in.
Declares ambition forges destiny, calls for loyalty to her for power.
Neville pushes back with principles. Love is a shield.
Yeah.
Lucy insists the artifact is a beacon, not a pawn, in this clash of ideologies.
But Jasper's crafting her own story now. Deception, ambition. Halem calls the two a dance of shadows, planning their escape like a performance.
And the raiders, who do they have back?
They rally to Jasper, chanting for ambition.
Neville tries to appeal to higher ideals. Lucy holds firm on Amias' essence, the rebels as hope. But it's chaos.
Yeah, literal fighting. Raider mobs versus rebel mobs. Platinum versus graphene.
And Jasper's leading her side now?
Orchestrating her forces while Lucy fights for MIS balance. Former allies, now enemies. A total mess.
So Lucy, Neville, and Halem are caught.
Surrounded by Jasper's raiders, they have to make a run for it.
Back to the rainforest.
Yeah, a daring escape. Lucy's wisdom guides them. The forest is their sanctuary again.
And Jasper.
She's reveling in her success. Her persuasive narrative worked. She tricked her followers.
And takes charge formally.
Makes a grand entrance in the Raider Hall of Rain. Gold outfit shimmering. Raiders are hyped for their new ruler.
What's her pitch?
A new era. Ambition. Power. Big plans for the war industry. crafting weapons with energetic 3D GR signaling.
So weaponizing the AMI's tech.
Exactly. Transcending conventional war, cannons using 3D GR essence, a symphony of power and precision.
She talks tech specifics.
Signaling pathways as information arteries, secondary signaling structures. Entire platoons synchronized by interconnected 3D GR.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
And terrifying.
Raider City as the new beacon of warfare innovation. Secure borders, conquer new territories. Her passion fires them up.
And the Raiders buy it.
Hook, line, and sinker, cheers, loyalty. Jasper's thrilled. Her rhetoric paved the way for conquest.
But conquest means attacking someone.
And the target is predictable. Biofactory Castle.
The peace is shattered.
Suddenly, Platinum Raider platoon appears in the courtyard, led by a raider with a 3D GR signaling cannon.
Those energy cannons humming with destructive potential. A total shift from creativity to conflict.
The settlers inside, Towson, Aaron, Triona, they sense it immediately.
And Dylan,
He sees it too, recognizes the threat to Veridagus' harmony.
the Raider leader, makes demands.
Oh yeah, opulent guy. Menacing. Announces Raider City's expansion, demands resources, they advance, cannons humming.
How do the settlers respond?
Triona, Towson, Aaron take defensive stances. Synchronic swords ready. It's more than combat for them, it's defending their values. Their dance becomes a symphony of resistance.
Dylan joins the fight.
Descends to join them. Biofactory Castle becomes a fortress.
So the battle for the castle begins.
Cannons threatening AMIS creativity. Triona, Towson, Aaron are symbols of resilience, artistry, strategy.
Every move counts.
Like notes in an epic symphony. Raider code versus synchronic sword language. Dylan unleashes graphene blades, turning destructive force into defense.
Dylan speaks.
Proclaims the anchoring 3D GRs echo divine harmony. Triona's dance deflects energy blasts. It's intense, radiant energy everywhere.
Aaron calls it the dance of creation starting.
Triona finds her rhythm, confident they can outmaneuver aggression. Their swords leave 3D GR trails.
That actually repair damage.
Towson notices it, mending the settlement. Aaron calls for tactical innovation to mess with the Raiders' plans.
Towson talks about wisdom, balancing righteousness and compassion.
But the Raiders keep coming, aggressive, shouting about conquest.
They don't let up.
Relentless cannon fire. But those synchronic sword trails keep defending, repairing. A manufacturing cycle mid-battle.
Dylan sees the AMIS principles powering their defense.
Yeah, against platinum armor and cannons, Triona, Aaron, Towson embodies resilience, artistry, determination.
But they need a better strategy than just holding the courtyard.
Right. Dylan orchestrates a strategic retreat into the castle.
Using the castle's design.
Exactly. The main gate, a labyrinth of 3D GR semantic structures. It disorients the Raiders.
The castle's interconnected creativity becomes a weapon.
It challenges the Raider code. They get separated, lost, can't understand the encoded language of the structures in the corridors.
So the defense shifts inside.
Deeper in, Triona and Aaron prepare for more fighting.
And they face the leader.
The opulent Raider with the signaling cannon confronts them, boasts about Raider City's might versus their feeble dance.
How do they respond?
Triona says the swords transcend aggression, their unity is their strength. Aaron says creation is their response, ready to counter the Raiders' agenda strategically.
The climax.
The Raider screams about his cannon's power, but Triona and Aaron work together. Their movements, a symphony of resistance, they capture him.
Capture the leader. That's big.
They present him to Dylan. Dylan observes.
The castle held.
So, a moment of assessment.
Dylan proclaims the dance of enlightenment prevailed. AMIS guided the defense. The captured Raider is defiant, though. Still talks up Raider City's influence.
What does Dylan do?
Surveys the scene. Raider kneeling, bound. Dylan approaches, tempo and rhythm in hand. Curious, determines look. Castle watches silently.
Dylan lets him speak.
Gestures for him to. A silent understanding. The Raider makes an offer.
Information.
Exactly. Info on Jasper's plans transcending conquest, innovation, manipulation, the 3D DR cannons, synchronic swords in exchange for gold and safe passage.
That's a tempting offer. High stakes.
Dylan considers it, sees the complexity. Settlers know it's a big decision.
And Dylan accepts. Yes. To uncover Jasper's secrets. For AMIS. For Biofactory.
So the attack is over, but the threat is revealed to be much deeper.
Right. Victory, relief. But now this captured Raider is a source. The courtyard becomes the strategy room. Aaron, Dylan, the Raider in the Grand Hall.
Aaron asks about Jasper's ambitions.
Yeah. And they're linked to biofexery. The Raider spills it. Jasper wants Raider City to be an epicenter of power. Through innovation, yes, but also manipulation.
The 3DGR cannons.
Key to a new kind of warfare and control. Synchronize 3DGR patterns as a language for coordination.
And the synchronic swords. What's Jasper's angle there?
Symbols of her linguistic skill, tools for strategic brilliance, blending tech and linguistic art to reshape conflict.
Wow. Dylan sums it up.
Calls it a convergence of tech, linguistics, strategy. The implications are huge. They face a formidable, complex challenge, need smarts and deep understanding.
And then we get Jasper's perspective directly.
Yeah, the scene shifts. Jasper addressing her gangster faction, dimly lit chamber, ready to reveal her real intentions, almost breaking the fourth wall for us.
Peeling back the layers of her grand performance.
Exactly. Sly grin. Says the real treasure wasn't gold, it was the secrets of the process for growing artificial citizens.
The artifact fragments the rebels have
hold the key to greater power for her. Her linguistic skill, philosophy, combat prowess, all tools of manipulation. The graphene structures, a smokescreen.
And her followers.
Pawns. Her real goal in taking biofexery. The secrets to shape artificial citizen destiny. Deposing Dylan was just step one to control the high ground for broader power.
The castle design was a diversion.
Masking her true intent. Create a settlement of loyal artificial citizens under her control using the rebel-held fragments.
So this whole drama.
A carefully crafted illusion. Everyone else, pieces on her chessboard, chillin'.
But someone else is watching Jasper, perhaps. Theodora.
Right. We shift back to Theodora's chamber in biofexery. Energy's humming. Dylan's there. The Raider emissary has left. Theodora's focus is now entirely on Jasper.
And Jasper feels it.
Yeah, atop Raider City, she opens her psychic third eye, senses Theodora, extends her own focus.
Their minds connect.
On a psychic plane, Theodora's third eye flares. Jasper appears as this towering obsidian figure, sharp blue third eye, voice like a blade.
What does Jasper say?
You continue to overreach. Have you not learned that your balance is no match for my strength? Classic Jasper.
Theodora's response.
Serene form, golden green, forest essence around her, calmly replies. Strength without balance is brittle, Jasper.
Ooh, Jasper won't like that.
Flaring aura, frustration. My foundation is unbreakable, the rebels are banished, your harmony is weakness.
Theodora pushes back.
Steps closer, energy like a river. Raider City may thrive for now, but rebellion is not so easily erased.
Jasper doubles down on control.
Big time. Destiny is not something I endure. Fear, strength, and control are the pillars of my empire.
Theodora counters about trust.
Control is a fragile illusion. Fear may compel obedience, but it cannot inspire trust. Her third eye glows. Aura expands.
Jasper tries to dismiss her.
Sharp laugh, believes she can silence all opposition.
But Theodora gets closer.
Aura brushes Jasper's. Deceptively soft. Words are not just sounds. You may have silenced voices, but you cannot silence thought.
The psychic plane reflects the tension.
Shifts. Jasper's constructs fray. Forest essence grows around Theodora. Jasper sounds angry, uncertain. You think you can sow doubt in me?
Theodora's final point.
Gaze softens, quiet strength. Doubt is not weakness. Your vision is grand, but it is blind to the truth that strength without trust is a storm that will devour itself. Presses on about building something lasting through trust.
Does it work? Does Jasper waver?
Her psychic form wavers. The connection phrase dissolves. Jasper opens her eyes back in Raider City with a flicker of doubt.
And Theodora
exhales. Dylan asks if Jasper listened. Theodora nods thoughtfully. She listened, but whether she understands, only time will tell. She looks towards Raider City. The storm is not over, but perhaps for the first time the winds are shifting.
A glimmer of hope. Then we jump forward again.
Yeah, 5 years later. Rainforest. Lucy, Neville, and Halem. Hunted since Jasper's betrayal and Neville's disappearance.
Wait.
Neville disappeared.
The outline mentioned his disappearance, yes. Let's assume he reappeared, or the outline meant he was just missing from the main action for a while. Okay, so Lucy, Neville, Halem are together. Hunted.
Right. Hunted, but determined. Trying to unlock the process artifact with their 3 fragments.
What do they have? Halem's Graphene 3DGR, creation. Lucy's machine unit, neuron blueprint.
What are they missing?
Jasper's piece. The signaling rules, communication.
Ah, so their beast mount, the one they're building, it's incomplete. Can't sync with the world.
Exactly. Halem's muttering. Almost there. Fragments ready.
But Lucy senses something else. A hum. Resonating with the planet. Getting stronger. coming from the mountain.
Mount Viridian. They've been heading there for weeks. Instinct, traces of Neville's designs.
They set up their nomadic village camp. Lucy wonders, is the mountain alive, connected to the artifact?
Halum's skeptical at first.
Lucy thinks the planet's signals are tied to it. Something beneath the mountain is waiting.
They go back to the Incognite Beast Mount.
Cool design, but limited without those signaling rules. Halum's frustrated. Puzzle without instructions.
Lucy has a thought.
Maybe it's not about the fragments we have. Maybe it's about the ones we don't.
Halum sees it as a dead end, though.
They camp for the night, Lucy thinks. Build a way to talk to the planet. The fragments are a language they don't fully get.
Halum makes a dark joke.
Lucy snaps back. The deadly fragments. A shared understanding. Continuing someone else's search.
And Lucy decides.
Tomorrow, they go into the mountain. Listen to what it has to say.
Okay, back to Theodora. Stillness in her chamber. Dylan enters.
She's waiting. Third eye opens. Revelation. You felt her, didn't you, Jasper?
She sees Jasper coming.
Like a storm Veridagus won't hold against. Dylan thinks countermeasures.
But Theodora cuts him off. Jasper's not negotiating, not desperate. It's a set path. An unseen breeze. Glyph vine rustles. Creepy.
Theodora's voice changes.
Otherworldly. Prophetic. Wild fringes falling in spirit. Biophexery shuddering, sinking into silence. Song breached. Chorus scattered.
And she tells Dylan.
You will not be here. Dylan's silent. His anchoring 3D GR dims.
What does she mean? Abandonment.
She says abandonment isn't betrayal when the structure is hollow.
Wow.
Theodora leaves, rises, walks past him. Robes trailing self-rewriting symbols. Pauses at the threshold. Final words. Stay if you want, but the castle will fall. Not from weakness, but because the idea of holding it was flawed. And she vanishes. Dylan's alone. Prophecy hanging in the air.
He considers letting go. Clutches rhythm's hilt.
Heavy stuff. Meanwhile, someone else is on a mission.
Kath. Grand Sigil Hall. Signaling rules fragment on a platinum pedestal. Kath's in the rafters. Bladed bow ready. 5 years culminating. She feels the fragment.
She's not alone down there.
Man, woman, boy below. Kath drops down fast. Whispers, it's real.
The woman warns her. Trap.
Just as Kath touches it, trap sprung. Kath yells, retreat. Silence broken.
Raiders arrive.
Platinum raiders. Thunderous boots, horns. The man charges, holds them back. The woman tells Kath, flee. We know our roles.
Kath runs with the fragment. Here's the man's final fight.
Yeah. Reaches the servants' corridor. The boy is shot.
Oh, no.
The woman pulls him up, tells Kath run. They'll draw the raiders off. Slight smile. You have to make it. They disappear. Kath sprints alone.
Escapes into the Platinum Garden. Voices behind her.
Fragment signals something back, reaches the forest edge, keeps running. Stops only in a shadowed gorge beneath the 3D GR tree. The fractal accepts her.
So Kath has the fragment, but she lost everyone, and Jasper's hunting her.
Jasper's reaction must be intense.
Oh, it is. In the Crucible, Jasper demands silence, confronts the gangster who failed, accuses him, Kath, a spy, solar fragment, demands answers.
His excuse.
Stammers. 3D GR binding overrode the sigils. Jasper laughs sarcastically, realizes Kath is Dylan's puppet. Pure rage.
Grips his jaw, roars the theft as a declaration of war, flings him aside, looks towards Biofex, records the rebels, Lucy, Halum, Neville.
Draws her swords.
Strand and spiral. 3D GR energy twists into glyphs of wrath, addresses the raiders, reframes the theft as a gift, declares rebel defiance ends now.
Raiders erupt. Jasper strides through them. Swords carving a path.
Gives the order.
Arm the cannons. Forge the hunt. Every rebel step is a thread in her tapestry to be burned. A lieutenant questions if Kath could be far.
Jasper's furious, sword at his throat. The rebels are close. Her third eye pulses, vows to show them what a god truly is.
Final declaration.
Trees will bleed platinum. Cannons sing a dirge. Raiders' city's wrath reshapes the world. Raiders howl. Cannons power up. Jasper leads the charge. The Crucible awaits more spectacle. The Queen answers the architect's spy.
This escalation is relentless. What about Neville? That recurring nightmare.
It starts with the hum again. Planet remembering, recoiling. He's on a ridge. Crystalline basin below. Lucy, Halum with him. Air thick with dread.
Lucy hears the hum getting louder.
Yeah. Neville's fragment feels cold, fears misinterpreting the noise's syntax. Ground quivers, planet exhales, shattering rupture.
Mirror locks.
Rising again from the wound, shifting planes of non-light, mimetic logic. Lucy yells about the network.
Neville tries to build defenses.
Fragment pulses hot, wants to build, but signals are wrong. Jasper's missing protocols. His creations dissolve. Halum fights with blades, Lucy with desperate grace.
Then the world rips apart.
Violent vertical rend. Ground disappears beneath Neville, inverted world. Sees Lucy's terrified face, reaching hand.
They touch.
Fleetingly. Then he falls. Signal void. Hum replaced by static. Soundless scream. Darkness. Shields his fragment.
The forest intervenes.
Sedates him. Root restraints, leaf shrouds. Signal cuts off, untranslated, endless falling. Cold certainty of being.
Less. And he wakes up.
Eyes snap open. His cot. 5 years later. Still haunted by the chasm, the faint hum.
While Neville deals with that trauma, Kath is active.
Yeah, rainforest atmosphere again. Heavy, musk, rot, constant tremor, broken sunlight. Kath moves silently.
Her bladed bow.
Dormant since the encounter, since she was named Uncoded. Now humming faintly. She has the stolen signaling rules fragment. Mission. Tracking.
Following a faint trail leads her to
A man. Neville. Sitting under an ironwood tree with runes carved on it. Discipline bearing. Twin longswords channel and moat across his knees.
Kath observes him, senses he's aware of something.
Raises the bladed bow. Aims. Forest watches. Neville shifts slightly. Silent knowing passes between them. Bow stays silent.
Ironwood groans, urging caution. Kath thinks, man is the most dangerous game.
Then ambush. World splits. Roar. Unnatural firebolt hits the ironwood. Neville leaps. Blades drawn. Vanishes into cover. Second strike. War cries. Charging raiders. Silver plate.
Leader shouts Jasper's name. Identifies Kath.
Yep. Cat fires, shatters a raider's weapon. Another raider spots her.
She dives, rolls, sees Neville.
Fighting silently, effectively. Forrest seems to help him. Clash spreads. Neville turns, gaze meets Kath's, briefly.
He doesn't know her, but she knows him.
She chooses ally. Nods. He answers with a blade tilt. Their dance resumes. 2 threads twisted by fate. Veridicious weeping blood around them.
Okay, back to Biofexery, the process artifact laboratory.
Cascading fractal light, interconnected machine units, pulsing signaling pathways, golden ratio alignment. Dylan moves gracefully, observing embryonic artificial citizens. Lingers on Kath's empty pod.
Murmurs about her synchronization.
Flawless. Then Theodora's hologram appears. Nodes glowing, extending into the systems. This is where she first observed the process.
A voice wavers.
Talking about integration, relinquishing discrete identity to become the castle.
Dylan clarifies.
Not just housed within, becoming biofexery, breathing life into its foundation. The purpose of AMS.
Theodora accepts.
Braytons. Consents. Nodes spread across the machine unit network. Dylan initiates the process. Symbols flare. Room vibrates. Harmonic energy. Theodora's matrix unravels into biofexery. Golden light binds her consciousness.
The castle changes.
Walls pulse. 3D structures shift. Machine units expand. Rhythmic hum resonates throughout.
Theodora speaks.
Voice fills the space. I am the structure. I am the shield. I am the song. Settlers gather in the grand atrium, drawn by the resonance. Lights form her ethereal visage.
She addresses them.
Explains her transformation. Steward, not ruler. Amplifying creativity, fortifying defenses, communing through the AMIS hum.
Settlers react. Dylan watches serenely.
Theodora warns of Jasper's approach. Declares biofexery a testament to creation over conquest. Resonance shifts. Tells them to rest. Build tomorrow.
Dylan's final thought.
Atop the spire at dawn. Castle humming with Theodora. Whispers. You are always the better architect.
Her reply.
Echoes in his mind. No, creator, I am simply your final lesson. Biofexery breathes. Stars burn brighter.
While Biofexery transforms, Jasper marches.
Rainforest pulses with nature, but also Jasper's platoon. Synchronized stride, synchronic soars, spiral and slice gleam. Signaling 3D cannons pulse.
Sounds intimidating.
Crackling electricity along the cannons, resonant footsteps echo, arcs of energy leap off, phosphorescent bursts. A warning light show.
Jasper leads.
At the helm, swords pulsing, rain refracts off blades, platoon roars battle hymns.
Jasper's command.
Booming voice.
Through the storm, electricity crackles with her words.
They can't see their targets. Lucy and Halem.
Unseen despite the light show. Jasper's gaze sharpens. Swords sense a disturbance, resolute. The storm finds its prey, even without sight.
The march continues.
Unyielding, synchronized to the heartbeat of war, guided by their own creation's thunder.
And the villagers, Lucy and Halem's people.
Rainforest air thick with fear, ozone. Jasper's platoon's thrum is a relentless drumbeat for the scattering village settler nomads.
Where are they heading?
Halem and Lucy guide them to the mountain's black water. A chasm, treacherous currents, desperate hope.
Halem doubts this path.
Internal conflict. Only hope or watery grave. Questions their choices. Jasper is an unyielding storm. Her swords whisper cruel energy, leave electric trails.
Cannons hum ominously. Synchronized strides continue.
Jasper's intense gaze presses through the canopy, silent rhetoric of dominance, booming command, forward through the storm. Platoon's thunderous echo.
The villagers are overtaken.
Consumed with terrifying speed, plague of metal and malice, desperate cries swallowed by the hunt's brutal chorus.
Halem fights.
Grim determination. His graphene 3DGR fragment feels like dead weight. Neville clutches his additive manufacturing fragment nearby.
Raiders are unstoppable.
Platinum armor. An unstoppable wave. Each Raider blade swing negates everything Halem fought for. Glint of platinum, the last thing many see. His creation fragment feels pointless.
Increasingly meaningless against this onslaught, yeah.
Wow. So we've really covered a lot, from philosophical discussions and sword dancing.
Right, at Biofexry.
To full-blown rebellion, betrayal, escalating warfare, psychic battles, ancient artifacts. It's intense.
Incredibly complex now, isn't it? Multiple factions, shifting alliances, deeply personal motivations driving this huge conflict.
And for you, the learner, hopefully this die has illuminated some key things. That blend of tech and philosophy in AMS.
The strategic combat, the role of language, both literal and symbolic.
The mystery of that process artifact, and just how unpredictable these characters are.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to mull over. Consider that idea of the language of combat we started with. How might that parallel other forms of communication, maybe less obvious ones, in our own lives?
How do our actions tell stories?
Exactly. And think about the ethics here, not just controlling tech, but the potential creation and destiny of artificial beings. What responsibility comes with that power?
So looking at all these characters, all these events, what story do you think is ultimately being told here?
And maybe more importantly, which narrative, which set of values or ambitions seems like it has the strength to actually prevail in the end? Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so picture this. Biofexry University. It's not your usual campus quad, you know. It's this arena. And it's just alive with shimmering energy. This is where you see the synchronic swords clash.
Synchronic swords. That term itself is interesting. Sounds like more than just hitting things.
Exactly. It's described almost like a dance. In our sources, they call it this form of expression. Wisdom, love, virtue, even like strategy.
Yeah.
It all comes out through these swords. And it's all happening inside this thing called the Additive Manufacturing Information System, AMIS. That's kind of the network, the fabric of their reality.
Right. So the tech isn't just a background element. It's like deeply woven into their culture, their philosophy even.
Totally. We got this great material you sent over detailing biofexry, the tech, the swords, something called 3DGR, which seems like manipulating matter, energy.
Yeah, I think advanced 3D printing, but for, well, almost anything, potentially.
Right. And the characters caught up in it. So our mission today really is to dive into that creativity, that interconnection, but also the conflicts that are starting to brew. It's all in these sources.
Sounds like a world right on the edge of something big. Could go either way, good or bad.
Okay, let's meet some people. Early on, we meet Triona, the saber gypsy, they call her. Her movements are like poetry. Then Luciana Quirke, she's an artisan, sees language in everything, even sword sparks. Towson Vellecroft seems very focused on the ethics of it all.
And Aaron Sawyer.
Aaron Sawyer, right?
Aaron Sawyer.
The strategist, always thinking moves ahead. And of course, Dylan E.T., he's the big one, the visionary who actually created AMS.
Quite a cast. Each seems to represent a different facet of this society.
Yeah. And right from the start, when they show off these synchronic swords, it's more than a fight. The way the energy colors activate and intertwine, it suggests, I don't know, a kind of collaboration, like they're weaving a story together.
It's almost like the swords themselves are talking to each other, or through the wielders.
Which leads perfectly into this idea. Dylan E.T. introduces the dialectical dialogue. He actually compares, get this, traditional Renaissance fencing with the principles of 3DGR within AIS.
So it's like, what's the connection there? Why fencing?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? He's trying to ground this super advanced system in something historical. Renaissance fencing, it wasn't just swinging a sword, right? It was deep strategy, space, timing, prediction.
Right, the mental game.
Exactly. So Dylan seems to be saying, look, 3DGR might be futuristic matter-energy manipulation, but at its core, It's about the same things. Strategic brilliance, precise execution, just, expressed through this new tech language. The encoded hilts, maybe they hold strategic data or even a kind of spiritual weight for the user.
And everyone else seems to pick up on different parts of that idea. Aaron obviously sees the strategy.
Naturally.
Dylan talks about the hilts having, spiritual symbolism, almost a divine syntactics in the fight. Triona sees the story, the harmony.
Towson sees virtue in the creation itself, powered by 3DGR. He calls it a sacred manufacturing process.
It really drives home that AMIS isn't just software or hardware. It's their whole way of thinking. It covers their actions, their beliefs, their morality.
But, this harmony doesn't last. Enter Lucy Stearns and her group Jasper, Halem Cathon, Neville Fallow. They're after something specific. The process for growing artificial citizens. What's that about? What do they want?
Well, their main thing seems to be knowledge liberation, democratization. They look at Dylan holding on to this process, which sounds incredibly advanced, right? Creating new people, maybe transferring minds, bioengineering.
Yeah, potentially huge.
And they think it's wrong for one person to control it. They see it as limiting AMIS, limiting biofexury. They want everyone to have access to explore it, even if it means, shaking things up, challenging Dylan.
So this philosophical difference boils over. Dylan versus Lucy. And it's not just talking, it's synchronic swords, it's something called anchoring 3DGR. How does that first clash go down? What does it show us?
It really highlights their different approaches. Dylan, the architect, he values stability, careful progress, managed evolution. Lucy, she's more radical. Freedom first, rapid change, even if it's disruptive.
And the swords reflect that.
You could imagine Dylan's movements being precise, controlled, maybe defensive. Lucy's more unpredictable, maybe more aggressive, rebellious energy. The key thing is she and her group get away. And they take fragments of the process artifact, the blueprint, basically. That's a huge blow to Dylan's control.
Right. That escape leads them into the rainforest of Mount Viridian. Dangerous place. And there, they start finding signs of another group, the Raiders. Eventually, they spot Clifton's stronghold, a fortress made of platinum, focused on resource extraction.
Yeah, a very different vibe from biofexury.
So what happens between the rebels and this Clifton guy?
It's another clash of ideas, but different from the one with Dylan. The rebels, even though they oppose Dylan, they still seem to operate within the spirit of AMIS, maybe valuing balance. Clifton and his raiders, they're purely exploitative. They see the rainforest, the mountain, just as stuff to take.
Raw materials.
Exactly. So the rebels try to talk philosophy with Clifton, maybe appeal to AMIS principles, sustainability. Clifton just dismisses them. He's all about power, resources now, doesn't care about their ideas.
And that talk breaks down into a fight, right? Rebels versus the platinum-clad raiders. The sources mention the rebels using strategy against Clifton's, like raw power, and Lucy's sword use having linguistic implications. How would that even work in a fight?
It's speculative, but maybe even mid-battle, AMIS principles apply. Lucy's sword movements, the energy patterns, maybe they're not just for attacking. Maybe they're sending tactical signals to Halem and Neville, or creating sensory static for the raiders, messing with their coordination.
So the swords are still communicating.
Potentially. It reinforces that idea. They're more than just weapons. They're expressive tools, even in chaos.
Okay, so after Clifton, the rebels do something pretty bold. They go into Raider City, their goal, to try and convince the Raiders to embrace 3DGR principles. Seems like a long shot.
Yeah, you'd think so. And they hit a wall pretty quickly.
Why? What's the fundamental problem?
It comes down to basic motivation. The Raiders want gold. Tangible stuff they get from raiding. The rebels are selling something abstract. Autonomy, innovation, creation through 3DGR. That's a huge mental leap for people used to just taking what they want. It's long-term vision versus immediate gain. Tough sell.
And it's in Raider City that Jasper really starts to shine. Or, well, maybe scheme is a better word. Manipulative, ambitious. How does she handle Lucy and the others there?
Oh, Jasper plays it smart. Or, cunningly. She seems aligned with the rebels at first, but you quickly see her focus is pure self-interest. She's exploiting the situation, the power vacuum, maybe for her own ends. Her talks with Lucy, Halem, Neville, you probably see cracks forming. Lucy wants liberated knowledge, Neville's committed to AMIS, Jasper just wants power, and she'll deceive to get it.
Which leads to her coup. She takes over Raider City, uses rhetoric, promises the Raiders more power, security maybe, and she has this vision. a war industry. Using energetic 3D-GR signaling and interconnected 3D-GR, what does that tech upgrade mean?
That's a huge shift, a dangerous one. Jasper's not just grabbing control. She wants to weaponize Raider City, turn it into a military tech hub. Energetic 3D-GR signaling sounds like advanced command and control for her army, interconnected 3D-GR, maybe rapid deployment of weapons, structures, faster, more efficient warfare tech.
Scary stuff, built on AMS principles but twisted.
Exactly, taking the creation system and aiming it squarely at destruction.
And the fallout hits Biofex 3 soon after. Jasper's Platinum Raiders attack the castle. Dylan, Triona, Towson, Aaron they're defending, using their synchronic swords against 3D-GR energy cannons. How does that even work? How do they fight back?
Well, it shows Biofex 3's strength, doesn't it? Their ingenuity. Yeah. Swords designed for close combat, for expression, somehow holding off energy cannons. It suggests they have a really deep understanding of 3D-GR. Maybe they can redirect the energy, absorb it, specialized sword techniques.
Wow.
It's Jasper's brute force tech versus Biofex 3's maybe more integrated, nuanced approach.
But they still have to retreat inside the castle. But then, a lucky break, they capture a raider. And this raider has one of those signaling 3D-GR cannons, and he offers a deal. Spill Jasper's plans for gold and escape. What does that tell us about Jasper?
It complicates her, doesn't it? Suggests maybe her control isn't absolute. And it hints her plans are bigger than just conquest. The raider mentions innovation manipulation, using 3D-GR signaling in both cannons and swords. It suggests she's not just a warlord, she's actively innovating, weaponizing AMIS itself in new ways.
Okay, then things get weirder. We meet Theodora. She has a psychic link with Jasper.
Yeah, that throws a whole new element in.
To suggest the conflict isn't just physical, it's mental, maybe spiritual too, and Theodora's worried about Jasper being relentless.
Right. That psychic connection implies battles fought on a different plane, perhaps. And Theodora's fear hints at Jasper's single-mindedness. Makes her seem even more dangerous, maybe even self-destructive in her drive.
While all this is happening, boom, new character, Kath, in a place called Veridagus. She's got a bladed bow.
A bladed bow, yeah. Unique weapon.
And she stumbles onto the whole mess with the fractured process artifact and everyone's scrambling for the pieces, especially Jasper. What's Kath's deal initially?
She seems like an outsider drawn into the storm. Independent, resourceful. That weapon suggests adaptability. Finding the artifact fragments puts her right in the middle of the power struggle. She could be a wild card. Unite the pieces. Make things even messier. We don't know her angle yet.
Okay, back to the original rebels. Lucy, Halem, Neville. They're still in that rainforest, Mount Viridian, trying to figure out their artifact fragments. They know Jasper's hunting them. And they're heading towards Mount Viridian itself. Why they're, what's driving them?
Survival, partly. But also unlocking the artifact. They must believe Mount Viridian is key. Maybe it holds ancient knowledge, a power source, or just a safe haven. Their journey feels desperate. The stakes are incredibly high.
And we get this flashback from Neville, really intense, about something called Murlocs and a total loss of connection. Why is that memory important for him?
It gives us his backstory, his trauma, this Murloc event, whatever it was, and the connection loss, probably the AMIS network failing, clearly scarred him. It explains why he fears instability, why reliable communication, reliable signaling is so critical to him.
Which makes Jasper having the signaling rules fragment even more potent.
Exactly. For Neville, that fragment represents control over the very thing he fears losing most. It's a potential safeguard against another catastrophe like the one he remembers.
So then Kath makes her move. She goes after that exact fragment, the signaling rules, infiltrates someplace, has a team, but it goes bad. Ambushed by Platinum Raiders. Kath gets the fragment out.
But loses her team.
Yeah. Tragic. How does that change things for her?
Oh, massively. It solidifies her role. She's proven she's capable, resilient. But losing her companions, that's fuel. For revenge, for justice, probably against Jasper. That personal loss, it likely locks her into this fight. Might even push her towards alliances she wouldn't have considered before.
And Jasper finds out the fragment's gone. Her reaction.
Explosive, pure fury. She grills some gangster for info, then just declares war. Open war on the rebel faction, Lucy, Halem, Neville, because she thinks they took it. Still thinks they're in the rainforest.
So things just escalated. Big time.
Absolutely. Losing that specific fragment, the key to her signaling network, that's a major setback for her war machine plans. Her reaction shows she's done playing games. It's full-on conflict now.
And adding to the dread, Theodora gives Dylan this prophecy, super ominous. fall of the wild fringes, fall of Biofexry Castle, and Dylan himself won't be there when it happens.
Chilling, right. It brings in this element of, like, fate. Maybe things are already spiraling out of Dylan's control no matter what he does, and him being absent. That makes Biofexry seem incredibly vulnerable. Where is he? What happens to him? Big questions.
And we see Jasper's forces making that prophecy feel real. Her platoon moving through the rainforest, synchronized. Synchronic swords humming, signaling 3D cannons ready. Jasper just radiates determination. They look unstoppable.
It's a powerful image. Shows her army's discipline, the effectiveness of her tech integration, her leadership. That relentless advance really hammers home the danger Lucy and the others are in.
Then the camera shifts back to Kath. She's tracking Neville in the Rainwood. Watching him, conflicted maybe, notices his twin synchronic swords.
Twin swords, interesting detail.
But then, Platinum Raiders attack again. They're after Neville too, and Kath has to decide. Fast. She jumps in to help him, allies with him. Why? What makes her choose that?
Could be lots of things. Shared enemy, definitely. Jasper's Raiders. Maybe seeing Neville fight, his skill, or just seeing the Raiders' brutality triggers something, that desire for justice or revenge. Suddenly, the enemy of my enemy, you know?
Creates a new team up.
Yeah.
Potentially powerful.
Exactly. Changes the board again.
And the last scene we get.
Yeah.
Jasper's platoon closing in on these village nomads near a place called the Blackwater. Lucy and Hallam are with them, trying to guide them towards this huge, dangerous chasm. It's desperate. Jasper's right behind them.
Yeah, leaves you right on the edge of your seat. The chasm is a massive risk, a leap into the dark, but Jasper's closing in is certain death. It's high stakes, the fate of all these people hanging right there.
So wrapping up this first deep dive into Biofexry from your sources.
Oh.
Wow, it's clear we've only just started peeling back the layers. It's incredibly complex, dynamic.
Absolutely. The mix of characters, the ideological battles, the way technology shapes everything. It's a really rich world.
And for you, the learner, hopefully this gave you some of those aha moments. Seeing Amos' principles in action, from sword fights to manufacturing, understanding why these characters are fighting those deep philosophical divides, and spotting the manipulation, especially with Jasper.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how it explores themes we grapple with too, right? Control versus freedom, the ethics of new tech, the corrupting influence of power. It resonates.
For sure. And it leaves us thinking, doesn't it? Like, what is the full power of that process artifact? What's really under Mount Viridian? How are these fights between Jasper, the rebels, Kath? How's that all going to resolve?
In Theodore's prophecy, what does it really mean for Biofexry's future?
So many threads left hanging. It definitely leaves us with a final thought maybe for you to chew on. When we talk about progress, what's better? Dylan's careful, controlled path, or the rebels' push for maybe riskier open exploration? Where do you draw the line ethically, especially with creating artificial life? And can knowledge and ambition ever really coexist peacefully? Or does one always end up twisting the other? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Okay, so you hear that rhythmic clashing sound.
Synchronic swords.
Yeah, from Biofexry University. But, you know, it's more than just people sparring. It's like a language almost, a story being told.
Right. Etched in light and movement, not just combat.
Exactly. And that's really our way in today, isn't it? We're diving into this fascinating place where martial arts meet. Well, advanced manufacturing.
And what's really interesting, I think, about that opening scene is how it gives us a window into the principles behind this bigger system.
You got it. We're doing a deep dive today into the interconnected creativity of the Additive Manufacturing Information System, AMIS for short.
Think of it like the central nervous system for innovation in their world.
Yeah, not just making things, but how ideas connect, how information flows. And we're digging into it all thanks to these excerpts you, our listeners, sent us from 2 books.
And these aren't just dry technical manuals, are they? There's philosophy, tech.
Oh, yeah. Martial arts philosophy, some really cutting-edge tech we need to unpack. There's rebellion brewing, hints of a big conflict coming. It's all in there.
It's a really compelling snapshot, actually. A society grappling with big technological jumps and, the questions that come with that, challenging the status quo.
So our mission basically is to figure out how this AMIS thing works at its core and understand these tensions, right? Different people, different ideas about it, different goals.
Very different ambitions, it seems.
Yeah. You've given us these amazing pieces of Veridagus.
Yeah.
And we're here to help you sort through the main ideas and the surprising turns you mentioned. Okay. Let's get into it.
Right. So that first bit, the synchronic swords demonstration.
Yeah.
It's not just for show. It's like a a foundational expression of AMIS on a conceptual level.
Exactly. You've got Triona, Luciana watching, then Towson and Aaron join in. And these swords, they're described as a language. Triona says it herself.
Every move, every interaction adds to the narrative.
Right. And Towson brings in this idea of virtue, like a balance in their movements that reflects the harmony MIS is supposed to have.
And Aaron focuses on the strategy, the wisdom baked into the timing.
The strategic thinking. And the sources mention the colors, right, when the swords activate.
They do, these sort of intertwining patterns of light. It's described as visually showing that interconnected creativity, the heart of biophexery and AMIS.
Like a visible map of how different parts of the system link up.
Precisely. And then the really key part, Dylan E.T. is watching this.
The architect himself, the guy who came up with AMIS.
And he sees the potential in it. He recognizes it as an exploration of that interconnected creativity he designed the system around.
It's like watching his blueprint come alive.
Mm-hmm. Which sets up their next big conversation, that dialectical dialogue, comparing old ways and new innovation.
Right. Dylan kicks it off. He brings up traditional fencing, from the Renaissance, and compares it to AMIS principles.
Delving into the history, the strategy, the cultural side of old swordplay.
Yeah, and then he introduces this concept within AMIS called 3D-GR. We should probably explain that a bit.
Yeah, 3D-GR, think of it as this super advanced material. Programmable, shapeable, you can embed properties into it. It's fundamental to their tech.
So Dylan's grounding the new tech in older ideas, showing that some core principles carry through.
And Aaron, being the strategist, jumps right on that.
He asks how these new 3D-GR hilts actually embody those old strategic principles. He wants to see the connection.
And Dylan explains, AMIS learns from that historical focus on precision, on discipline, but then he adds this whole other layer.
The spiritual symbolism bit.
Right. He talks about a language of divine syntactics in the movements, so it's not just about mechanics anymore.
It's getting deeper, more philosophical.
Definitely. And Triona and Towson jump in then, talking about the encoded hilts on their synchronic swords.
Reinforcing that spiritual side, the artistry, that interconnected creativity again, it's communication for them beyond just fighting.
Towson has that really holistic view. She sees AMIS as balancing righteousness and compassion, like a sacred way of making things.
Harmonizing the earthly and the divine, sort of?
Exactly.
So for you, the listener, thinking about this, AMIS sounds like more than just a production system. It's almost a whole philosophy, trying to connect tradition and this wild new 3D-GR tech, respecting the past, but pushing forward.
Which makes the next part, the rebellion, even more impactful, because it shows how those same principles can be twisted or, interpreted very differently.
Yeah, this is where things really kick off. We meet Lucy Stearns, Jasper, Halem Cathon, and Neville Fallow. They're in some hidden room.
And they've got this process for growing artificial citizens.
Whoa. Okay. And right away, their reasons for being there seem different. Lucy wants to understand it. Jasper smells like power, ambition.
Halem seems initially just into the disruption, maybe.
Yeah.
And Neville's conflicted. Does this fit with AMIS principles?
It's a recipe for trouble, isn't it? Big knowledge, clashing motivations.
Classic drama. And they decide to take it.
They just grab this process knowledge. They think Dylan's vision is too narrow, too restrictive.
And Lucy tries to frame it as guardianship, not chaos.
That's one way to put it. It tells you a lot about her perspective, though. She doesn't see herself as the bad guy.
No, maybe more like she's serving a different, maybe freer purpose, even if it breaks from Dylan's plan.
So Dylan senses something's wrong. Of course he does. The system's architect feels a disturbance in the force, basically.
And he confronts Lucy, high up on Biophexery Castle, epic setting.
And it's ideology versus ideology, right? Dylan pushing for harmony, stability, Lucy arguing for freedom, exploring the unknown potential.
And it's symbolized by the swords. Dylan's tempo and rhythm versus Lucy's encoded hilts.
The established order versus the push for change.
And then Jasper, Neville, and Halem dramatically appear, each holding a piece of the process artifact.
Like shattering the original vision into pieces. Wow.
It's a powerful image. And the fight that follows, the sources say it has linguistic significance.
Meaning the sword moves, the 3D-GR trails, they're not just random flashes. They mean something.
Apparently. It's communication layered onto combat. And even as Lucy escapes, she creates this complex 3D-GR semantic structure.
Like leaving behind a coded message or maybe a digital trap made of 3D-GR?
Could be. It shows her understanding is deep. It's not just about fighting. It's about manipulating the information layer of AMIS too.
Which emphasizes again, MIS isn't just about making stuff, it's fundamentally about information.
Exactly. So, the rebels Lucy, Jasper, Halem, Neville, they escape into the rainforest.
Trying to figure out this process they stole. And boom, almost immediately, signs of raiders, new group, new conflict.
Yeah, the setting shifts, and so does the dynamic. The rainforest is a totally different environment. And the raiders seem to operate by, well, maybe no rules we've seen so far.
They find Clifton's place, a platinum fortress, sticks out like a sore thumb in the jungle.
And he's clearly just strip mining the place. No thought for balance or those MIS ideas of interconnectedness.
So the rebels try to talk to them, explain their philosophy.
They do. Interconnected creativity, divine principles, responsible 3D GR use, the whole spiel.
And Clifton's reaction.
He basically laughs it off. The rainforest, 3D GR, it's all just stuff to dominate. Tools for power.
Predictable, maybe. So conflict is inevitable. The platinum-clad raiders attack.
Right. But even in the fight, you see the rebels' individual styles reflecting their philosophies. Lucy's linguistic sword dance.
Helem's tricky, roguish moves.
Neville drawing on AMI's wisdom.
And Jasper's cold, calculated strategy.
It shows how they apply their understanding, even under pressure.
And surprisingly, they win.
They do. And it actually starts something in Raider City. Some raiders are, interested in the rebels' ideas. Linguistic exploration, ethical creation.
Huh. So maybe a chance for change.
Well, this is where Jasper really steps up, but not necessarily in a good way for the others.
Her ambition takes over.
Completely. She rises to power in Raider City, but her message is different. It's about ambition, tech supremacy. They mention energetic 3D GR signaling in cannons, weaponizing it military might.
A very different path than Lucy or Neville might have envisioned.
Totally. And then the betrayal. Jasper makes her move. It was always about power for her.
So Lucy, Neville, and Halem are targets now.
Yep. Forced to flee back into the rainforest. And Jasper declares war. She sees Kath stealing a fragment, the signaling rules, as Dylan and the other rebels defying her.
So Kath is another player here. We'll get to her. But Jasper vows to hunt down Lucy, Neville, and Halem.
Relentlessly. It cements her as the main antagonist now. Ruthless.
Okay, shift focus. Back at Biofactory, we have Theonora. She's worried about Jasper.
Deeply concerned. And then this really weird, fascinating thing happens. A psychic confrontation.
Jasper reaches out. Psychically, across the distance.
Yeah, and it's a clash of minds, of wills. Jasper's strength and control against Theodora's balance and wisdom, played out on some psychic plane.
Wow. What does Theodora say?
She warns Jasper. Her power is built on fear. Rebellion is still simmering. Steel alone won't win against destiny. Control is an illusion.
Powerful stuff, trying to undermine Jasper's certainty.
Exactly. She says, fear doesn't inspire trust. And that line about words being like, seeds you can't truly silence.
Planting doubt.
Trying to, yes. Suggesting there are other paths, maybe more lasting ones, than just force.
Does it work? Does Jasper falter?
The text hints at just a flicker of doubt after the connection breaks.
Just a moment. Interesting. And Theodora feels like she's planted those seeds, but the storm is still coming.
Right. She's bracing for impact.
Okay, now Kath. Who is she? The narrative introduces her kind of suddenly.
She just emerges into Varied Aegis, heralded by runes. Knows herself, apparently. We get quick glimpses of the world through her eyes, crystal reefs, sentient forests, Jasper's signal fires.
And we learn about the process artifact being broken into 4 pieces. Jasper has the signaler part.
Neville the machinist, Halem the forger, and Lucy the architect piece.
So Kath's purpose is?
To see what Dylan couldn't, maybe? To judge what's worth keeping or challenging in Varied Aegis.
And she gets a weapon.
The bladed bow, forged from synchronic sword parts and refined 3D GR. A weapon of knowledge, born from conflict. Needs trust and precise coding to use.
And her target?
Jasper. Labeled a demagogue, Kath's mission seems clear.
Okay, meanwhile, back in the rainforest, Lucy, Neville, Halem are fugitives, hunted.
And we're reminded what fragments they have. Halem's graphene 3D GR for creation, Lucy's machine unit, the neuron blueprint. But they lack Jasper's signaling rules.
The communication piece, which limits them.
Right. They're heading towards Mount Viridian, feeling some pull, some connection to the artifact. But their incomplete beast mount shows they can't build properly without all the pieces, especially the signaling part.
And we get a flashback. Neville's disappearance.
Yeah, a really intense one, a cataclysm. These things called mirror locks rising from a rupture. Chaotic signals because Jasper's protocols weren't in place. And Neville falls into a chasm.
Explains his trauma, the hum he hears.
Adds a lot of depth. and shows the danger of this tech when things go wrong.
And this is also where we find out how Kath got that final piece, the signaling rules.
We do. A harrowing story. Infiltrating raiders, a trap, her companions, man, woman, boy sacrificed. She escapes alone, but with the fragment.
A huge cost for the final piece.
Definitely underscores the brutality of Jasper's regime and the stakes involved.
So Jasper finds out the signaling rules fragment is gone. How does she react?
Fury. Absolute rage.
yeah.
She sees it as total defiance, probably blames Dylan too.
And she targets the remaining rebels in the rainforest, Lucy, Halem, and she probably thinks Neville's still with them.
Exactly. Mobilizes everything. Cannons armed. Vows to burn the rainforest to ash to get them.
She thinks Dylan's weak, and her third eye tells her the rebels are close.
Yeah, she declares Raider City's wrath will be a forge, reshaping the world in her image. Pure destructive power.
And Theodora feels this coming.
She senses Jasper's movement, yeah. But not like a leader, more like a force of nature. A storm.
And she warns Dylan.
Tells him Verity just won't hold. And delivers that chilling prophecy. First shall fall the wild fringes, crumbling not in battle, but in spirit.
Oof. That sets a pretty dark tone for what's coming.
Deeply foreboding. Suggests the damage will be more than just physical destruction. It's about breaking the spirit of the place.
Okay, so let's pull back and try to wrap this up for now. We've seen this huge philosophical clash within AIM-IS itself.
Right. About its purpose, its control. Then the power struggle for the process artifact.
Jasper's really ruthless ambition versus the, I guess, maybe more idealistic goals of the original rebels and Dylan.
The arrival of Kath, this total wild card.
And now this massive threat hanging over Verdagus, personified by Jasper and her raiders.
And looking at all these sources you shared, it gives such a complex picture. Creation, destruction, knowledge, power, they're all tangled up.
It really paints a vivid picture of that world. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it actually mean to control knowledge, to control innovation, especially in a system designed to be interconnected like AIM-IS?
Yeah, and what happens when the ideals it was built on just fracture? We see it playing out. Jasper's drive for absolute control versus, well, what was the original potential? Harmony, ethical creation. That seems to be the core conflict, right? Jasper's way versus the potential for something else. And it's a critical question for their world.
Absolutely.
Right.
Her focus on power through force and tech versus those founding ideas of interdependence and maybe even spiritual balance.
This deep dive, it feels like we've only just started peeling back the layers of Verdagus. So much more to explore. What parts are sticking with you the most now?
What happens to Lucy, Neville, and Halem? That's a big one. And Kath, what's her full story, her real impact? And the process artifact itself, what can it fully do?
Yeah, all those threads feel like they could go in so many directions. The fate of the rebels, Kath's journey, the ultimate power of that artifact. Lots to think about.
Definitely leaves you wanting to know more.
Well, thank you again for bringing this intricate, really thought-provoking story to the deep dive. We genuinely hope exploring it together has given you some useful insights.
And maybe sparked even more curiosity about Verdagus.
Yeah, hopefully it's got you thinking. Thanks for joining us. Okay, hear that. That rhythmic clash. That's the sound of synchronic swords at Biofx Free University. But it's more than just, a fight. The sources you sent describe it as a language, almost a story unfolding in real time.
Exactly. And that's really our jumping off point today, isn't it? This intersection of martial arts and advanced manufacturing.
Right. Because that sword display gives us a window into the bigger picture.
Yeah, the principles behind this whole system they have.
Precisely. We're doing a deep dive today into what they call the Additive Manufacturing Information System, AMIS. Think of it as the core operating system for their innovation.
Not just for making things, but how ideas connect, how information moves. It seems really fundamental.
Totally. And we're piecing this together from those book excerpts you shared. They're packed, really packed, with martial arts philosophy, some pretty wild tech, rebellion brewing.
And you definitely get a sense of impending conflict, yeah. These excerpts show a society grappling with big technological changes.
Big time. And the questions that come up when tech pushes against, well, the established ways of doing things. So our mission here is to unpack AIM-IS itself, what it is, how it works, and also these tensions that are clearly rising. Different people seem to have very different ideas about it.
And different ambitions driving them, too.
Absolutely. You've given us these amazing glimpses into Verdagus, so let's try and make sense of the core ideas and, yeah, those twists you mentioned. Ready to dive in?
Let's do it. So starting with that synchronic sword display,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just for show. It's like a living metaphor for Amos principles.
Right. You've got Triona, Luciana watching, then Towson and Aaron join in. And Triona explicitly calls it a language.
Yeah, where every move adds to a narrative,
Then Towson brings in this concept of virtue, like a balance within the form.
mirroring the harmony Amos is supposed to foster.
And Aaron focuses on the strategy, the wisdom embedded in the timing.
And the descriptions mention the colors, right? The patterns from the swords activating.
Yeah, they intertwine.
That seems key visually, showing that interconnected creativity that Biofx3 and AMIS is all about. It makes the abstract idea sort of tangible.
And here's a crucial bit. Dylan E.T. is watching this.
The architect of AMIS himself.
Exactly. And he sees it, he recognizes this dance as an exploration of that very interconnected creativity he designed the system around. It's like his blueprint coming alive.
Yeah, it's validation in a way.
Yeah.
Which sets up their next conversation perfectly.
The dialectical dialogue, where they start comparing the old and the new.
Dylan kicks it off, comparing Renaissance fencing, traditional swordplay, with Amy principles.
Which is fascinating. He goes into the history, the strategy, the cultural side of old fencing.
And then he brings in 3D-GR within the AMIS context.
Okay, so 3D-GR, we should probably explain that a bit. It sounds like some kind of programmable advanced material.
That's the gist, yeah. Material that can be shaped, given properties almost like code.
So Dylan is linking this brand new tech back to older, established principles of skill and strategy.
Showing that some core ideas like precision, discipline, they carry through.
And Aaron, the strategist, jumps right on that. He asks how these new 3D-GR hilts actually embody those classic swordplay strategies. He wants to see the connection.
Good question. And Dylan explains that AMIS does draw on that historical focus. Precision, discipline, yes. But then he adds another layer.
The spiritual symbolism.
Right? He even uses the phrase language of divine syntactics, which takes it way beyond just mechanics.
Suggests this deeper, maybe even philosophical purpose to Amos.
And Triona and Towson echo that, talking about the encoded hilts on their synchronic swords.
They bring up the spiritual side again, the artistry, and that recurring theme, interconnected creativity.
For them, it's communication that goes beyond just the physical clash of blades.
Towson's view is particularly interesting here. She sees AMIS as embodying a balance.
Righteousness and compassion, she says, like a sacred manufacturing process.
Whoa, okay. So it's about harmonizing what they do, making things with higher principles.
It's a very holistic view of technology in its place.
So for you listening, AMIS isn't just a factory system. It's a philosophy almost. Trying to bridge tradition and this radical innovation using 3D-GR but respecting heritage.
Precisely, which makes the next part, the rebellion, so impactful.
Yeah.
Because it shows how those same principles can be twisted or, well, interpreted very differently.
Yeah, this is where the sparks really fly. We meet Lucy Stearns, Jasper, Halem Cathon, and Neville Fallow. They're in a hidden room with something called the Process for Growing Artificial Citizens.
Ooh, okay, that sounds significant.
Right. And immediately you see different motivations. Lucy seems genuinely curious, wanting to understand it.
Jasper, though, the sources hint at ambition, power.
Definitely seems that way. Halem initially seems drawn to the chaos it could cause. And Neville, he seems conflicted.
Yeah, wondering if this whole thing actually aligns with AMIS ideals at all.
It's a recipe for trouble, basically. Powerful knowledge, conflicting desires.
Classic setup.
And they decide to take it. They grab this process, arguing Dylan's vision for it is too limited.
Too restrictive.
And Lucy tries to spin it. She calls it guardianship, not theft or chaos.
That's a key piece of her character, I think. She doesn't see herself as the villain. She thinks she's freeing potential, maybe.
Could be. Meanwhile, Dylan senses something's wrong. A disturbance in the force, so to speak.
The architect feeling his system being tampered with.
He confronts Lucy way up high on Biofexry Castle, and it becomes this clear ideological fight.
Dylan pushing for harmony, stability, the intended path for AMAS.
And Lucy arguing for freedom, exploring the unknown, the untamed potential of this process.
And it's symbolized by their weapons, right?
Don't.
Dylan's synchronic swords, tempo and rhythm, representing order.
Against Lucy's encoded hilts, representing that push into new territory.
Then Jasper, Neville, and Halem show up.
Holding pieces of the artifact, like a visual declaration, the shared knowledge is now broken, fragmented by their individual goals.
It's a powerful image.
The fight that follows isn't just clashing swords. The sources emphasize the linguistic significance of the moves, the 3D-GR trails.
So even the fighting is like communication, or maybe miscommunication, within the AMIS framework.
Yeah. And when Lucy escapes, she creates a complex 3D-GR semantic structure.
Meaning, like a coded message or barrier.
Seems like it. Something more than just a physical obstacle. It shows her deep understanding of AMIS isn't just about fighting, it's about manipulating the information, the semantics of the system itself.
Right. AMIS is about information flow just as much as physical creation. Her escape proves that.
So the rebels, Lucy, Jasper, Halem, Neville, they flee into the rainforest. They need to figure out this process they stole.
And right away, they run into signs of trouble. The raiders.
A whole new dynamic, a different environment, different rules.
Yeah, the rainforest setting feels like a deliberate contrast to the structured world of biofexery.
And they find Clifton's stronghold, a fortress made of platinum.
Which sounds pretty imposing and maybe unnatural in that setting.
Totally. And he's exploiting the rainforest, clearly doesn't care about the AMIS principles of balance or interconnectedness we heard about earlier.
He sees resources simply as things to be dominated.
The rebels try to talk to him, explain their philosophy, interconnected creativity, ethical use of 3D-GR.
But he just shuts them down.
Completely. Views the forest, 3D-GR, everything as tools for power. No deeper meaning for him.
So conflict is inevitable.
Absolutely. The clash with his platinum-clad raiders. But even here, the rebels' individual approaches shine through.
How so?
Lucy's fighting is described as a linguistic dance. Halem uses roguish, unpredictable tactics. Neville draws on his AMIS wisdom, and Jasper is all strategic calculation.
So their core philosophies are still evident even in combat.
Yeah, and surprisingly, they win. But the victory has an unexpected effect.
That happens.
It actually starts a conversation within Raider City. Some raiders start listening to the rebels' ideas, linguistic exploration, ethical creation.
Interesting. So they have some influence.
They do, initially. But this is where Jasper really makes her move. She starts using persuasive rhetoric, but it's all about ambition, tech superiority.
Less about philosophy, more about power.
Exactly. She mentions using energetic 3D-GR signaling in cannons, weaponizing the tech for military might.
A very different direction than, say, Lucy or Neville might envision.
Totally different. And then comes the betrayal. Jasper orchestrates a coup. Her real goal was power all along.
So the alliance fractures completely.
Completely. Lucy, Neville, and Halem have to escape back into the rainforest again.
And Jasper.
She declares war. There's mention of someone named Kath stealing a fragment, the signaling rules fragment, and Jasper sees this as Dylan and the remaining rebels defying her.
So Kath is another player now. And she got a piece of the artifact.
Seems so. And Jasper vows to hunt down Lucy, Halem, and Neville. Total war fitting.
Okay, so Jasper is now firmly the antagonist. Ruthless.
Definitely. Now, the focus shifts back to biofexery, to Theodora. She's clearly worried about Jasper.
Understandably.
And then we get this really wild scene, a psychic confrontation. Jasper initiates it, reaching out to Theodora mentally.
Wow, a battle of wills on a psychic plane.
Exactly. Jasper's strength and control versus Theodora's balance and wisdom. It's ideology versus ideology, but psychically.
What does Theodora say?
She warns Jasper. Says her power is built on fear, that rebellion lingers beneath the surface, that steel alone doesn't win against destiny.
Deep stuff.
She says control is an illusion, fear doesn't build trust, silence isn't strength. And she has this line about words being like seeds you can't truly stamp out.
Trying to sow doubt in Jasper's mind? Suggesting a different path?
Seems like it. She talks about doubt being the start of wisdom, strength needing trust, letting go of absolute control.
Does it work? Does Jasper waver?
The text hints at maybe a flicker of doubt after the connection breaks. Just a flicker.
But maybe enough.
Theodora seems to think so. She sees it as planting seeds, preparing for the coming storm. She knows it's not over.
A very tense standoff, even psychically.
Now, enter Kath properly. She arrives in Veridagus, guided by runes, described as someone who really knows herself.
So she's an outsider, but a determined one.
Yeah. We get quick flashes of the world through her eyes. Crystal reefs, sentient forests, Jasper signal fires, and we learn about the process artifact being split 4 ways.
Jasper has the signaler piece.
Neville the machinist, Halem the forger, and Lucy the architect piece.
Okay, so those are their roles or the function of the fragments.
Seems likely. And
Yeah.
Kath's purpose. The text says it's to see what Dylan could not, to decide what's worth keeping or challenging in Veridagus.
So she's like an auditor or maybe a catalyst for change.
She'll be. And she gets a weapon. The bladed bow.
Made from synchronic sword parts and 3D GR.
Yep. A weapon of knowledge, born from conflict, requires trust and precise coding to use.
Interesting symbolism there. Fusing combat and information.
And her mission is clear. Confront Jasper, who's now explicitly called a demagogue.
So Kath is positioned directly against Jasper.
Meanwhile, back in the rainforest, Lucy, Neville, and Halem are fugitives. Hunted.
And they only have their fragments of the process.
Right. Halem has the Graphene 3D-GR piece for creation. Lucy has the machine unit, the neuron blueprint. But they're missing Jasper's signaling rules.
The communication part. So they can't fully use what they have.
Exactly. They're heading towards Mount Viridian, feeling some kind of pull from it connected to the artifact. But their incomplete beast mount shows their limits without the full set.
A metaphor for their fractured potential.
Then we get this brutal flashback about Neville.
Explaining his disappearance earlier.
Yeah, a cataclysm. These creatures called Mirlocks appear from a rupture. Signals go haywire because Jasper's protocols are missing. Chaos. And Neville falls into a chasm.
Explains his trauma, the hum he hears, and shows the danger of this tech when it breaks down.
Definitely. And we also learn how Kath got that final piece, the signaling rules.
The one Jasper thought the rebels stole earlier.
Well, the one Jasper lost track of and blames the rebels for, Kath infiltrated the Platinum Raiders. It was a trap. Her companions, man, woman, boy, sacrificed themselves.
Oh, wow, so she paid a heavy price.
Huge price. She escaped alone, but with the fragment. Now all 4 pieces are accounted for, just not together.
Which brings us back to Jasper. How does she react to Kath getting the signaling rules?
Fury. Absolute fury at the failure. And she takes it as another act of defiance, probably still linking it to Dylan and the others.
So she focuses her hunt on Lucy, Halem, and Neville.
Yeah, believing they're still together in the rainforest. She mobilizes everything, arms the cannons with that energetic 3D-GR signaling.
The weaponized tech.
Vows to burn the rainforest to ash. She's convinced Dylan is weak, and her third eye tells her the rebels are close.
She's going all out. Declares Raider City's wrath will reshape the world.
It's full-on scorched earth mentality.
And Theodora senses this.
She does. She senses Jasper moving, but describes it like a storm, not a leader. Pure destructive force.
A force of nature, almost.
She warns Dylan, says Veridagus won't hold against her, and then gives that chilling prophecy.
First shall fall the wild fringes, crumbling not in battle, but in spirit.
Yeah. Suggesting the damage won't just be physical. It'll break their will, their coherence.
That's a really ominous note to end on for that section.
It really is. So let's try to wrap our heads around all this. We've seen this core clash within AMIS, right? The philosophy versus the application.
Definitely. And the power struggle over the process artifact. That knowledge is clearly a major source of conflict.
Then you have Jasper's ruthless ambition hitting right up against the ideals of Dylan, Lucy, Halem, Neville.
And Kath emerging as this wild card with her own mission.
Yeah. And looming over it all is this massive threat to Veridagus itself, personified by Jasper's impending attack.
The sources you provided, they really paint a complex picture. Creation, destruction, knowledge, power, they're all tangled together.
Deeply tangled. And it brings up some big questions, doesn't it? Like, what does it really mean to control knowledge, especially potentially transformative knowledge like this process?
And what happens when the ideals behind a system like AMIS get fractured? We see the potential for harmony, like in that sword dance.
Right, that initial vision.
But then you see Jasper's path, power through force, weaponizing the tech. It's a stark contrast. What are the consequences of that fracture?
That's the core tension, I think. Jasper's ambition versus that original potential for maybe a more balanced use of AMIS.
It makes you wonder which vision, if any, can ultimately succeed in their world.
Absolutely. We've really only scratched the surface here, delving into the materials you sent. There's so much more, isn't there? What part of Veridagus are you most curious about now?
Good question. I think the fate of Lucy, Halem, and Neville, the original rebels, besides Jasper, is really compelling. Can they reconcile their ideals with survival?
That's a good one. Or Kath's journey. What will confronting Jasper actually look like?
And the process artifact itself. What can it truly do if someone manages to reunite all the fragments?
So many threads left hanging, so many possibilities.
It's a rich narrative tapestry, that's for sure.
Well, thank you again for bringing this fascinating and really intricate story to the deep dive. We hope this exploration has helped unpack some of it for you.
And maybe sparked even more curiosity about the world of Veridagus. It certainly gave us a lot to think about.